why don't they?
I think that's just the nature of the tile, but they intended doing it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, April 25th Selectmen's Meeting. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I need to push this on, this thing?
Kathy.
Joe Demore is here for a public comment. He says 30 to 40 seconds.
30 to 40 seconds per sentence, I'm kidding.
You're on the clock.
I really appreciate the opportunity to address the board. Thank you. I am so thrilled that you folks are putting together a budget workshop tonight. And I hope that you can also summarize for all of us the details of how the town meeting followed by the ballot will impact the override question, and also what happens in Merrimack and how that impacts us, because it's a little confusing. From what I understand, in Merrimack, they're having their town meeting tonight. Essentially, for the measure to pass, the override measure to pass, they have to have a yes both at the town meeting and also at the ballot. But for us, it's a little bit different. For the measure to pass, we would have to say yes at the ballot or no, and then there would be no warrant article on the override at the town meeting, I believe. See, it's a little confusing even to me. I think if we say no at the ballot, then it won't come up at the town meeting. At least that's the way it's supposed to work. So I'm not going to try to guess, but I have been in dialogue with a lot of folks, and there is a little bit of confusion. So we look to you, hopefully with this budget workshop, to help us clear that up a little bit so people are better prepared. And again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, we have approval of the warrants. Jason, do you have those?
Yes, I do. I'll make a motion to approve payroll warrant 2243 in the amount of $184,259.10.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Bill warrants.
I'll make a motion to approve bill warrant 2243 in the amount of $765,738.77,
And a second.
which breaks down to the town of $128,875.06. Water and sewer, $4,829.47. Payroll withholding, $72,525.71. Light bills, $317,494.52. Grants and revolving, $242,014.01.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Approval of the minutes. Rebecca, those still, we haven't got those, so we need a motion to table till
I'll
we
make a
get those.
motion to table the minutes for April 11th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Votes of the board. Special event permit application, Groveland Congregational Church. Request to display flags surrounding the monument from May 26th through June 3rd, and on May 29th, hold a ceremony. And we have the permit application, which explains everything. Any questions? Any comments?
Was that in the electronic packet? Yes. Okay, I didn't see that.
Set the flags up on Thursday, 5/26, surrounding the monument. Remove the flags from the common by 6/3. Now we'll need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the special event permit for the Groveland Congregational Church.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? None. Go ahead, Bill.
Just really quick, I imagine Rebecca's already not sure when the Perry Park lawn is mowed. Do we need to work around that? I'm sure that's already been
I did speak with the highway superintendent today, and he said that they've done in prior years, is that they've worked with them in order to coordinate mowing. So they would do the same this year.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Accept the resignation of Jonathan Riappel for the Water and Sewer Commission effective April 5th. And we have his letter of resignation. He doesn't have time anymore. Need a motion to accept that.
I'll make a motion to accept resignation from the Water Commission for Jonathan Ripoli.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Discussion and possible vote. Budget and town meeting workshop votes may be taken. And we all have the warrant articles and the omnibus budget. We should do the omnibus budget first. And then we'll do the warrant articles.
Point of information, I thought it would be informative if it's possible to show the summary of revenues and everything, the cover sheet.
Sure.
Are you able to project it and show it to people at home so they can we can kind of walk through that, how we come up with the money that we come up with to spend?
Sure. Can we get that up on the screen? Jason, the people can see that at home?
Once she sets it up,
Okay.
Beautiful.
Did you want the revenue page? Is that what you're
Yes, I just thought, if you wouldn't mind, because you've done such a great job on it, to kind of walk folks through the limit on how much additional funding is actually brought in each year. It's kind of an eye-opener for most people. Yeah, well, do you want to just walk them through what it is, what the numbers mean? You know, as far as the tax, the 2.5%, the new growth, just the big numbers. I mean, receipts aren't changing that much. Doesn't look like at all. Well, I'm just saying, most people don't understand how we set a tax rate. What does Prop 2.5% really mean?
So we have our prior year.
Just gonna need a microphone.
And then we have our 2.5% added to that fund for new growth, plus the debt exclusion for the town projects that we have, which is 150 Center Street, as well as the fire truck purchase that was made previously. And then we have the debt exclusion for the Pawtucket Regional School, high school, middle school project that we have. And then there's the proposed override, which gives us a proposed fiscal year 23 property tax total of $18,828,889. In addition, with our local receipts, we're looking at proposed $1 million for the intake for the motor vehicle excise, which is a large area of our revenue source, and then some department revenues as proposed in the spreadsheet. And then we have our state aid numbers that came in. Multitasking. So we have our Chapter 70 monies, our unrestricted aid, and then some other state aid sources that come in with a total of $1,079,470, and some other financing sources which total into the overlay surplus that we, Board of Selectmen, had voted on a couple meetings back, in addition to the transfer from the Groveland Municipal Light Department, as well as what we're proposing to put in from transfer from other funds. Specifically, you'll find this with the Conservation Commission. Their funds are transferred into our revenue source, and then we're taking those out of the budget, so it offsets on our expenditure side of things, for a total revenue source of $21,676,799 for projected for fiscal year '23.
Any
Yeah.
questions for Rebecca?
No, I don't have questions, just to point out, just to highlight, like, the two major components that people ask about the most are the amount that gets added from 2.5% is only, what is it, the second line from the top, the 388,750, or is that new growth? No, that's the 2.5%. And then new growth was 183, so between the two of them, really just an addition of like $550,000 additional to cover all of the increases. And most of our assessments go up by more than that.
Yes.
Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, that 676, 799. To the summary. Which line would that,
Which line, which?
on the summary tab? 676, 799.
Oh, I see, the bottom line.
Yep, so it doesn't tie into the other sheet, so. Yes, it does on the total expenses. Wait, no, 21. Yeah, so the number's off. I'll have to go back and update the spreadsheet. Something's not calculating.
I'll give you a hand with that, I imagine.
Anybody else? Kathy?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Can you point out where on the revenue side, where's the Chapter 90 come in? I see, I don't see it listed here.
The Chapter 90 funding,
Yeah.
it's not listed as part of the revenue source. We have to accept that at town meeting from the state. And it's also a reimbursement grant, so technically we have to apply for those, well, we spend those funds and then we get reimbursed those funds through the state.
Anybody else? Question? None? None on the revenue and expenses? No questions?
One quick question I had, on the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes, I noticed it was 41, then 26, and now it's back up to 89,800, the pilot payment in lieu of taxes. So,
That's for the solar field
okay,
agreement, in addition to the agreement that was put in place with the Groveland, Housing Authority out back. And they actually had not paid for the last two fiscal years, including this fiscal year. So this takes into consideration, I believe it's just so it takes into consideration the 3 fiscal years that they had not paid, so that would be the $19,000. So it's the solar agreement that we have with the Groveland Municipal Light Department and Edison, I think it is, Electric, and then also that payment that we get from the Groveland Housing Authority. But for the last 3 years, which is why it's significantly higher. It's not just one fiscal year.
so it should have been more like 41,000 per year? Do you think? Probably.
So it would have been standard, I mean, it's 2% additional from last fiscal year. So you have, like, the solar agreement only adds
Oh, okay.
2% after. So it would have been, what is it, last year would have been 26,864 times 2%
Yeah. Okay.
plus the payment from the Groveland Housing Authority. So that would have been more of the typical calculation as opposed to the 19,000 times 3.
Okay. Good.
You know why the overlay surplus went down so significantly?
Why it came down?
Yeah.
Because we have so much outstanding. There was less that the Board of Assessors felt comfortable releasing, since we would have to cover that if anything were to happen.
So we had that much added in 1 year?
That's what I was told by the Board of Assessors, is that the calculation was that, and that that was even something they were a little uncomfortable releasing.
Is it possible to get a list of what additional items have been added to give them such concern?
I can share with you the spreadsheet that they sent over to me with the outstanding items and their formula for calculation. I sent that over to Selectwoman Castronellis, so I can send that over to you as well.
I've been looking at this.
It must be a lot of new stuff,
New calculation.
new calculation.
Yes. I've never seen this before.
So it's a departure from prior fiscal years, how they calculated this.
I'm not completely sure. I know that for years we've always had them released from the overlay approximately $50,000 to help towards balancing the budget. I believe the balance in the overlay could be 360,000. Is that possible, the total?
Okay, pull it up.
I think I checked it somewhere and I thought that's a significant amount. I mean, they're allowed to hold an amount in overlay. And then periodically, annually, they typically release. And it's always been in the neighborhood of $50,000.
Yeah, right, no, it's-
So it is concerning. I haven't looked all the way through the calculation. I've just started looking at it.
it's a 66% decrease over prior years.
Correct.
It said the land. So the grand total balance of amounts to be covered by the overlay is $341,231.87. So the excess, based upon the total overlay balance as of 6/30/2021, which 360,525, would be in excess of 19,293.
I'm still looking at that calculation.
Hmm.
I've never seen that one before.
I just relied on our Board of Assessors to provide the information as to the overlay and what they would be comfortable releasing, as it's under their jurisdiction to release the overlay.
Correct. And it may be there's something new. There may be a new calculation. I've just never seen that
One,
before.
too. Either something has been added to the roll or a deviation from prior year's calculations.
Could be. Can I just ask you, the overlay just sits there, though? It doesn't gather, it can't earn interest or anything, correct? The money, while it's an overlay.
I'm sorry.
It stays in overlay. It doesn't wash out at the end of the year. It stays in overlay. It cannot earn interest, and it just stays there until released, as far as I know. That's my understanding.
I mean, it stays into the average, account for abatements.
Right.
Doesn't really accumulate, it's not like it carries over, it resets kind of every year based upon the assessed value and what we have for outstanding.
But the amount that they put in each year is not 360,000. It's more like, I don't know, it's on the tax recap. It's more like 80,000 or something, 110,000 maybe?
Of what we hold over, yes.
Yeah, that's what's on the tax recap. Okay. Okay, I'm just, again, I, with Selectman O'Neill, I saw the change in the amount in a tough year for us. It's a tough change. And that's all.
I can go back to the board and ask them for more details as to how they came up with the formula.
Well, I guess, I'd rather just look at it a little bit and just research a little bit, see if we can figure it out.
Rebecca, one more thing. The calculation for the motor vehicle excise, that's a pretty conservative number.
It is a very conservative number, but people aren't buying cars like they were, and they're buying more used cars. So we were trying to be conservative with the estimate to make sure that we were reflective of what the market is showing us right now.
So you're projecting actually almost a 1% decrease from prior year, where every other year it looks like it's 8-9% increase year over year. Have you seen the price of used cars lately?
You can definitely try and increase the estimate if you'd like to.
No, conservative is better.
I just felt uncomfortable with trying to increase it and not knowing with the uncertainty of what the economy is like and with the interest rates rising and how people are tending to buy less because groceries are more expensive and things of that nature. So buying luxury items like a newer car is not really what people are doing. So because of the pandemic and the way things were shaping up, I just felt as though being conservative with the motor vehicle excise is a smarter thing to do.
No. I tend to agree.
Yeah, and I don't think that the price of the used cars necessarily translates to the worth of the car or the excise tax.
It obviously doesn't. 'Cause
No.
the 3 excise tax I-bills, there's just no rhyme or reason why they were what they were.
Okay, anybody else? We'll move on to the omnibus budget. Unless there's further questions on the receipts.
No, but a quick question on the certified free cash. I hate that moniker. I don't know why people call it free cash. There's nothing free about it. It's rather light this year as opposed to prior years, huh?
Well, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
It's rather light this year as opposed to prior years.
Cash.
It's only-
Yeah, and we used, yes. We had the balance as of 2021 of $418,107. And we used a good chunk of stabilization for the special town meeting in December to cover some of the additional assessment for the Kentucky Regional School District, the buyback, as well as the public health nurse salary. And
Oh, that's when they pulled the ESSER out from under, the rug from out from under us. Yeah, that was mighty nice of them. Good, they would send them a thank you note for that.
Were we all set with that?
Yep.
All right, let's go on to the omnibus budget. Do you want to go down major categories? Anybody have any questions? Under Selectmen.
I had a quick question on the consulting services. Did I forget? Are we doing
That's
something?
for the OPEB valuation.
Okay.
Nothing under Selectmen?
Nope.
Anything under Town Administrator? Treasury Department?
Just under town administrator, it's administrative coordinator was the position that was there. Just change the name to match that.
It looks like that was
And-
not
and it's
put in
zero-
this year.
Yeah, it's zeroed out. Yeah. Tight budget.
Treasurer Department? Any questions on that?
I just asked to strike the name town administrators because we have it up above now on its own line. So we don't need to carry it on two lines, right? Did you say that was all right to strike? That way it's pretty clear that we went from finance director to a town administrator. Make sense?
Nothing under Treasurer? Town Accountant? No questions on that? Board of Assessors? No questions on that? Town Council?
I do have one
And Board of
question.
Assessors?
Yeah, and maybe I know the finance board is here, and they look at this more closely than I've had time to. These numbers for the revaluation, the appraisal, software license, I can understand why that's consistent, but the revaluation maintenance number, is that the same number year by year is that the same number every single year? More or less? We don't really know why? Do we know why? Yeah, I remember having looked at that and still not understanding what it is, really.
Thought it was a license,
Is it a contract? Well, we don't do appraisals, we don't do the valuations. They contract it out,
third party
I guess.
So isn't that just a contract for?
value.
I guess.
And if it's a contract, we've reviewed the contract, I imagine, to make sure it's still valid through the,
The only thing they had mentioned in their budget book that they had submitted is that we continue to maintain our contract with Patriot Properties to provide field evaluation updates.
at the same cost.
So I imagine it's the same company, same contract, just carried over from last year. I think the only thing that she had mentioned as part of her memo, being the assessing manager, was that there was last year they had budgeted an additional $7,500 to fund the appraisal of personal property accounts, and due to the continuation of the pandemic, DOR waived these appraisals but plan to reinstate them in FY '23, which is why that $7,500 carried over from the fiscal year '22.
So we're not spending it twice, we just didn't
Nope,
spend it?
Just carrying it over
Okay.
because it didn't get utilized.
Okay, well set on Board of Assessors?
Yeah.
Town Council? No questions on that? Technology, a big increase.
It's a big change.
Which
Well,
one, I'm sorry?
The technology budget has changed?
Yes, the technology budget has changed substantially. One of the things I did is that I combined both of the line items into one line item, because now that our former finance director was very savvy when it came to the technology efforts, so she did a lot of the actual software upgrades. She went around, did a lot of troubleshooting for each individual department. She added different features, different screens, different monitors, different whatever you have. She knew how to do it all. I do not know how to do computers the way that she did. And so this technology budget takes into consideration that we would hire a individual that would come in, and they would help us manage all of our computer infrastructure as well as help us upgrade our computer infrastructure. So it takes into consideration our software licensing fees through Vadar, ClearGov, and those other programs that we have, as well as troubleshooting, archiving, backup, and then having them come in and replace computers that are outdated, as well as software upgrades, and that all gets encompassed into like a year-long maintenance contract. So it's a service maintenance contract, so they take care of all of that. So that's why it would increase substantially as to what it had been in prior years, just because it was taken care of by that one individual who's no longer here.
So this contract is going to cover software and hardware?
Yep.
So if we have a bunch of old laptops or desktops sitting around that are, say, 5, 7 years old, they're gonna replace them in this contract?
Yep.
No additional cost?
Yeah, well, as part of the contract, because essentially they make their business on having their equipment operate. Because the less they have to come and do troubleshooting and take care of our infrastructure, the better off they are, because they just get their what they get out of their contract. So if we're in good shape, then they don't have to waste their time and resources on us. So essentially, it kind of works itself out as long as that we can keep ourselves updated. And part of the ARPA funding that we invested in is we invested in cloud-based for the Exchange server. So now we're moving all of our emails over to the Exchange server, so we no longer have to worry about the on-premise Exchange server, which will take care of some of the troubleshooting issues, but then adds additional licensing requirements because now we have to pay a hosting fee for the cloud. So this offsets to some of the changes that we're making, and one of them being that the company will make money off of making sure that we're in a good position and not having to come visit us too often.
So this is an all-inclusive. I mean, if we have a major malfunction with a piece of hardware, they're gonna come and replace it.
Well, they'll come and fix it, yeah, what they can.
If they can't fix it,
Well, the server is a little bit different. If we're talking about a computer, a desktop, or something like that, of course, but the server is it's a little bit more challenging.
yeah, it's, can be
And especially
$75,000.
if we're moving things to more of a cloud-based network, so we don't really necessarily have to worry too much about the server. One being, like I said, the Exchange is a big one because we're constantly getting our email hacked. So then the last few items that we have on the actual on-service, on-premise servers would be our files, and then as well as the Patriot, which we just got updated. And then we have Laserfish, which is on-site as well. And that would be 3. So we're hoping to phase out each one of those every year, moving to the cloud. So any malfunctioning that would happen is severely reduced because we're taking away each one of those and putting them into a mechanism that will be easier to maintain, is safer and more reliable for the town.
I'm in agreement. I've suggested doing that for years. Cloud is the way to get away from these very expensive servers that need to be replaced every 5 to 7 years.
So is this up to 100,000? Like, in other words, it includes some, like the town council budget, but not, this has some fixed cost in it, I assume, and
Exactly.
then it has some leeway.
Exactly, because like we said, there's the Vadar cost, ClearGov cost that are annual fees, the website cost is based into that. So we're trying to create kind of more like a technology budget, and as we get into next fiscal year where we're understanding exactly what that looks like and what that means, we'll have a better detail and breakdown to offer you next fiscal year with
Okay.
more of a line item breakdown. But with this fiscal year not really knowing what that looks like, we figured a general understanding based upon the cost that we do understand and not having a contract in place for IT-related services as of yet, because we will need to go out for bid, it would be safer to put out a number of this nature.
And the last question, for this year, we've basically run through all the money, troubleshooting and everything, and now we're trying to just,
We're in the negative, so
we're in the
need
net.
to do
Right,
the
so the 63,000 was not enough money.
No.
No, okay.
And that was
Okay.
a result of the hacks, the multiple hacks that we got, and the repairs that were warranted for that.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's definitely something that has to happen.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on technology?
No.
Town clerk?
Town clerk, the finance board You're recommending the assistant town clerk and for the poll workers basically half of what the department's requested.
Can I comment?
Sure, that's why I asked the
Can you go to the
question.
podium? Yeah, identify yourself so everybody knows.
I'm Ruth Rivard. I live at 6 Berrywood Lane in Groveland. I chair the Finance Board. Yes, Finance Board agreed with the town administrator's recommendation for the assistant town clerk, which keeps it was a new position that we just added this fiscal year. It keeps it funded the same this year, this coming year, '23 as well. We just didn't have the funds to double that. So we maintained the same. And again, it's a new position to us this year that we added to budget. So
Right, and the poll workers, do they have more volunteers or they just need less of them?
the poll workers, again, we agreed with the town administrator recommendation, and that was to not change the compensation structure at this time for the poll workers. Keep it in line with the current system,
Due
And
to
I know
current
that-
circumstances.
given the circumstances. Yeah, I mean, I will say, the finance board spent a lot of time. We interviewed all of, just to give a quick little background, we interviewed all of the departments, and it's a really tight budget this year. And so we had to make some difficult decisions, but we really worked hard to also make what we see as fair decisions. And in all cases, the votes of the finance board this year on every line item were unanimous. So we worked collaboratively as a group and came up with our recommendations, which for the most part agree with the town administrator recommendations. And really, it's a matter of just doing the best we can with the resources that we have.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
With respect to the poll workers, the reason that it's much higher in the request than what was granted as well is that they had asked for the poll workers to be granted minimum wage of $15 an hour, which is not what they're getting currently, which we're able to do under Massachusetts state law because we're exempt from paying the minimum wage, and where the conversation was centered around how many elections we have and the true incentive for people to volunteer and be part of the elective process. There was that conversation as to if we don't have that money for our current staff, is to give minimum wage for the poll workers to work 2 or 3 elections, really where we want to put that additional money when we can't fund some of our other positions, or even, let alone, try and give our assistant clerk more hours. So that's why it was down as well.
That make sense, Bill?
Yeah, it's all perfectly clear to me.
Anybody else? On town clerk? I got a question under there. The rationale, town clerk salary recommending a 2% increase. Custodian facilities director 3%. Building inspector 2%. Cemetery 3%, highway 2%, library director 2%. What's the rationale for some at 2 and some at 3?
Do you want me to comment on that, Rebecca? So 2% is generally what we are able to do, what we aim to do. Over time, when employees receive a 2% raise, then what happens over time is employees that have been here for a long time that are at a lower end of the pay range just get behind, because 2% is a smaller dollar amount than employees that are getting 2% on a higher base salary. So over time, people that have been here for a long time, shown loyalty to the town, just are getting more and more behind in the pay scale. So there were a handful, a small amount of positions that really stood out. It's been a discussion for the last couple of years. We are undertaking the salary study, but we thought that to show a good faith that we are hearing employees, these meetings that we have with the employees are not just, going through the motions. We do listen, we do incorporate what they say, and there were a couple of employees that we thought were just behind the general pay range vis-à-vis the town. And so we gave a couple of people 3% versus 2%, and it was really not material dollars to the overall budget, but it was, I think, meaningful for some employees that have been here for a long time that needed to catch up. I can tell you that's something that we've done with other departments. The police department has done that. The reserve officers are at a lower end of the pay range than the salaried officers. So every once in a while, the chief would request that we move them up a little bit so that there's not as much of a gap, and we've done that. Now we're trying to do that with a couple of other employees in the town. We can speak to any of them individually.
And I thought that was the purpose of the $30,000, I think that we approved last meeting to do a study. So it just seems like, I just think they all ought to be the same. But wouldn't it make more sense, instead of doing 2%, 3%, give everybody the same dollar figure? Because the parity between the positions gets wider and wider apart when you start giving out 2% to a $100,000 person is a lot more than 2% to somebody at 50 or 60,000. Wouldn't it make more sense to say everybody gets the same dollar figure rather than a percentage raise?
That's one way that you could look at it. It's not the convention for the town, for the contractual employees, for the school employees. So it would really be a dramatic change of course from what has always been implemented in this town, in other towns, in, I would think, also really corporate America. It's not what I've seen.
But don't you see what I'm talking about?
I do,
As
I do.
every
I hear
year,
what you're talking
if you get a
about.
$100,000 person and you give them a 2% raise and you get a $50,000 person at 2%, it gets further and further apart. Well,
Exactly.
To me, and it'll never happen because it makes sense, to give everybody 50 cents an hour, and then nobody can complain. But when you start doing the percentages, and I know it's done everywhere, but it doesn't make sense, that
Yeah.
wider and wider apart.
Yeah, and wider apart is exactly right, and that's why there were I think there were maybe 3 employees who that gap has really become more material over time. And we try to just take a little action to start to move them in line with the general employee base.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you for that, because I think it's something that needs to be done. I think the employees will really appreciate it, and I am looking very forward to that study to make sure that everybody is properly compensated for the jobs that they do.
Yeah, I mean, the study is important. We needed a town administrator in place in order to implement the results of the study. I've never been not in favor of a study. I was in favor of the study, but I wanted to have the staff here to oversee it and to make it happen, and now we're in that position, and we had the ARPA funds to fund the study as well.
And I think you're gonna find, like I said before, I think you're gonna find that town employees are underpaid, and it's gonna cost us a lot more money after that study gets done, to bring these people up to what
No, and-
people in other municipalities are making.
Yeah.
I think we're way under the average salary range.
But you see with our, well, that's what, and we want to know that, and we want to know that across the board. So as we make changes, they're not opinion, they're fact, and we can back it up and we can do it equitably, we can do it methodically. That's what we really need to do, not to do it based on one person asking versus another. We want to be fair to everybody. But we also need to have the dollars to do it. So once we receive the results of the study, we're going to have to find out, where we have the funds and how we're going to implement it. And that's going to be another challenge. But just because it's going to be a challenge doesn't mean it's something to just ignore. So that's where we are.
Anybody else? Bill, Kathy?
No, I just, listening to it all, I mean, I think the chairman and the chairwoman of the finance board were saying more or less the same thing.
I think so.
2% on, $100,000 a year is a lot more money than 2% for someone that's earning $25,000 a year. And so we've had some employees that came in at the lower end and have stayed here. They enjoy working for us. We enjoy having them here. But we're in danger of losing them more than the higher end right now if we don't, start to do something. So I think a show of good faith, any show of good faith, I think is always a step in the right direction. People note that they're being noticed, they're being appreciated, and I think that's a good thing. And I also just think in general for folks to understand that in the whole scheme of things, when you talk about the amount of money that possibly could be used to start to make some reasonable steps and adjustments in salaries, it's not insurmountable. But it means that we have to agree to vote balanced budgets at town meetings. We have to agree to listen to advice from our finance board and our town administrator. We have to learn to be able to say, no, we're not going to do that right now because we want to keep the budget in balance and we're moving towards adjustments to salaries. So you can't have everything at once, but you can have priorities. And if this is made a priority, then the town meeting should be told that we want to vote a balanced budget because we don't want to walk out with an unbalanced budget because we're setting up to deal with something that we all agree needs to be dealt with. And I think it can be done. I mean, and I also will point out for the fact that some of our salaries might appear low, but not all of our salaries are low. And you can look around in any of the towns around, even the wealthier towns, and you'll find positions that aren't as highly paid as you would think. And it just varies. It depends on what the people are doing. Job names don't always point to everything. So I think the study that's going to be done is a good one. It's going to cost a little more than I think some of the other studies we looked at, but this one will deal with job descriptions, correct?
That's correct.
So we'll get people to what they do and what we're expecting of them and move us toward a better place to pay them. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, all set on town clerk.
Yep.
Economic Development, Planning and Conservation. Any questions on that?
It went down. Am I right? Did that go decrease?
That is correct.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with a decrease in a budget. That's
guess-
helpful.
Everybody all set on that?
Yeah.
Municipal buildings. No questions on that?
I do
Go
have
ahead.
I do have a question on, and this is probably a stupid question. I should know. What do we use for fuel, for heat?
What do we use for what?
For heat, for fuel? What are we tied to? Is it gas or
Yeah,
oil?
yeah.
Gas? Okay,
And then but there's oil, I think there's oil at the library.
okay. Are we concerned at all about the price fluctuations for next year, or?
I mean, when I talked to the facilities coordinator, there wasn't any concern for an increase of the budget line item
Okay, so we're tracking all right this year? Okay.
so far.
Okay, insurance. And that finishes up. Yeah, it's got big increase.
I do have one quick
Go ahead.
question. On the health insurance, is that a,
Property and casualty.
the health insurance is a
No.
pretty big jump? No?
Yes,
Um,
6%
And that's solid? That's what they say?
for the DSE. They
Wow.
eliminated the Fallon as part of one of the plans, and then all of the other ones went up.
Okay.
Anybody else? Public Safety, Police Department?
And Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I might say, Bill, I found the calculation error on the summary sheet. It doesn't take into consideration the transfer from other funds, the free cash, as well as the overlay surplus. If you add those into the revenue source on that front page, it'll equal out the 21,676, 799 as it does on the other page. So it just doesn't calculate it accordingly because they weren't added to that front page.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was bothering me that it wasn't.
Oh, we don't want it to bother you. All right, police department. I got a question on that. Actually, police and fire. Take it together. You know, under the Police Reform Act, the reserve officers are going away. Has the finance board looked into, whenever that happens, they're probably gonna have to send some more people to the police academy, hire full-time officers? Have they looked into that? And then also, under fire department, I believe we have about, maybe about 18 months under the grant. And how are we gonna fund those two positions in 18 months? I know we've had about a year and a half to be preparing for it, and I haven't seen anything done as far as that goes. And the same thing with, under the Police Reform Act, where the reserves will be going away. Unless they go to the police academy, and I'd probably have to pay them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's something that affects the small towns, really doesn't affect the larger municipalities. It affects the small towns like Groveland, Georgetown, Merrimack, Boxford, et cetera.
Chief Gillen reviewed that with us, and he has that incorporated into this year's budget, the expectations for that. He had talked about adding a full-time officer in lieu of the reserves, and it was going to, he has a couple of officers that have been here for a long time retiring, and so the budget can absorb the additional officer.
Well, he is putting forward a couple of those reserves officers through the Bridge Academy right now as we speak, so they are getting the training that they are required to. Some of the reserves officers don't want to become full-time officers. There's no desire, and I think that's the issue. And I would 100% agree with you, Mr. Chair, that it's almost an unfunded mandate. It really does put a lot of pressure and undue burden on the local municipalities, especially local towns that don't have a large police force. But the police chief is very aware of that and has taken proactive steps, like you said, to get those officers through the Bridge Academy. And he does believe that he can absorb one full-time officer as part of his budget with the current retirees and the turnover that he's had in his department. However, he is going to be looking to add additional positions. I think it's 3 total, he said in his letter, that he'll predict 3 additional officers will be needed to accommodate for the changes, but under the current FY23, he believed he could absorb that one officer as needed with those changes. But he is looking at what we need to do in order to meet those mandates and make sure that the department is fully staffed. But I can let Mrs. Rivard speak more to
That was
the
it.
fire side
It's
of
very
things.
much, it was written up by, the chief definitely addressed it in his budget packet, his plans and noting it. And it is an unfunded mandate. One more. I mean, the entire town is answering to unfunded mandates. The school answers to unfunded mandates. It's a struggle for the town. But yeah, the chief has certainly addressed it in this year's budget and is taking action.
And address what's been done to fund the 2 full-time firefighters that have another, about 18 months to go.
So last year, we were advised not to fund that stabilization account because we didn't have the money to do it. This year, I mean, we don't have excess funds to fund a stabilization account. It's not a matter for balancing this year's budget, and it's absolutely something that I know we've talked about, the town administrators talked about. what will happen with those two positions, how we're going to take them into the budget. It's going to have to be part of a conversation and difficult decisions that are before us.
Okay. Any other questions on public safety, police department? We'll go back to that.
Yeah.
Anybody? Bill?
The education incentives, they go down because of the turnover and because of the retirements? That looks like half.
Yeah, it had to do with, I recall, I believe Chief Gillen said that they were incentives that were, certain officers were grandfathered into, and they're the retiring officers, so that changed that number.
And that's part of their contract negotiations with the police officers, as you know, since the Quinn bill is no longer in effect. There's a carryover from those who are grandfathered in, but then there's also the back and forth as to other officers who, if they receive a bachelor's, a master's, and whatnot, if they'll get additional incentive for those as well.
Those achievements, sure.
Can I go back to the fire? You asked about the two full-time
Go ahead.
firefighters for a quick second. That too has to do with us really making sure that we keep all of our costs in check. Last year, the fire department budget went substantially over its budget. And I know that was an atypical situation. It was COVID, people were home, there were more calls to answer. And this year, I believe that our calls are also, that line item is pretty much expended. So, we need to really, again, make sure that we know exactly what the numbers are, what they mean, that the full-time officers really are taking calls, taking the work that we need them to take to make the value in that department's budget work. So I think that we need to just continue to monitor it. And yeah, we need to come up with funds for it. But you'll see that this budget is balanced within $500 and there's no exorbitant expenses, so.
Any other questions on fire? Bill?
Just fuel costs on both fire and police.
So the fire didn't ask for much of, they asked for an increase, obviously based upon the fact that they have a new truck, which will require more fuel and the price of gas in general. And then we've been actually talking to the police chief about, they have hybrid vehicles, but talking about electronic vehicles and about using the ARPA funds that we set aside for the new line cruiser, and instead of going forward with their standard hybrid, is to go forward with an electronic vehicle. I'm working with the Groveland Municipal Light Department to get a charging station over at the police station, and trying to utilize those mechanisms so that we can keep that cost down, because even though, we don't really know where the economy is going right now, and the gas prices included, we're hoping that we can be a little bit more proactive about what we do in the future, and obviously our environmental footprint as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking all the fire except for the command vehicle are all diesel.
Yeah.
Diesel's $5 a gallon. They're gonna fuel that for $8,500? I would think that's what it costs to fill just the ladder truck.
That's what they proposed.
I know what they propose, but I don't think that's realistic.
Can the
They
electric
spent
cruiser?
$7,700 actual in 2021, and that was when diesel was $2.80 a gallon. I don't know how they're only gonna spend $800 more at double the cost. I just don't think that's a realistic figure. And that's wishful thinking. Unless something dramatic were to happen.
You think that ought to be increased?
If it was up to me, absolutely.
Well, we need to take it from somewhere else then.
Either way,
2021 was also the year with exceptionally high calls, when everybody was home, and
and exceptionally low gas prices because no one was going anywhere. I think that, that's my point. If they go on anywhere near the same number of
oh,
calls,
yeah, actual for 2020 was less than 6,000. So 6,000 to 8,500 is a 30% increase? More than?
Just take the percentage increase in gas price and apply it against what they actually spent 3 years ago.
Yeah, and
You know when we
6,000
tried
was
to
the year
map
before
out
that,
the
too.
loan
And 6,000 was the year before that. 6,000 was the trailing 3 years before 2021. So 2,500 on a 6,000, it's pretty substantial percentage increase.
Maybe you could have equipment and supplies get looked at by the fire chief to take some money out of that. He's got a new truck that's all already stocked up, right?
Very fancy.
I know, I want to see this
Is
truck.
it here?
It's in town.
We're at, the
South Station, I think.
Mm,
At,
The South Fire Station on Washington.
oh,
I
I
know.
think they're hiding it.
I'll-
'Cause it's all really
I'll drive
shiny
by that
and
on my
bright
way
blue.
home.
It's a darker red.
They were all there tonight, too.
Of course. New
Okay.
truck.
Must be getting it ready for Santa Claus.
Any other questions on fire department? I assume there's no question on parking clerk, that
Well,
is still zero.
he's not here tonight. We can't ask him any questions. Derek Donald's our parking clerk.
Nothing else on fire department?
No.
Bill, anything? Jason? Nothing. That takes care of public safety. Education.
We didn't do the building
The
department.
building and the emergency management.
Ooh,
Nothing on that? Public Works. Yeah, I got a question on that. Under the tree warden expenses, the request was, looks like, Crest was, 2750.
27,500.
Yeah. And Finance Board recommends 20,000. Have you looked around town at all the dead trees that should be removed? I don't think the 20,000 is a realistic figure. Actually, I don't even think 27,500. I think it should be closer to probably 30. But there's a lot of dead trees that are got to come down, and their expenses are up
oh, we're down,
to remove those.
we jumped down to tree warden.
So I can speak to that a little bit. In 2018 and 19, 2018, there was no tree budget. 2019, there was a $5,000 tree budget. So we really started proactively maintaining the trees in fiscal year 2020 with about a $25,000 budget. And that went up slightly to $27,500. That was a new initiative at a time when we had excess capacity in the budget. And that was a reasonable thing to do, was to start to proactively maintain some of those trees. This year, we level funded it. The town administrator recommended a level funding of $27,500, which was what we used last year. And the finance board made a recommendation to lower that to 20,000 even in order to fund some other initiatives in the budget. So 20,000 was an amount that we thought could keep the tree initiatives moving forward, and make some adjustments elsewhere, specifically in support of the library. There were some
Yep.
pay equity issues in the library that we wanted to address. And
Not a
Yeah.
realistic figure. But anything else under Highways, Public Works?
Under tree warden, I have
Go ahead.
some statements. Yes, I mean, I've watched this thing grow from $1,400 to $27,500, you know, and then and I'm never quite sure what, I believe we contract out this whole service, whatever it is, whether we're just taking down trees or whether we're maintaining them. And I'd like to be more clear on what we're doing, because there is a bylaw that protects the trees along the side of the road, and is supposed to protect our tree canopy. And I know it's come up that it probably needs to be revised a little bit, the bylaw, but this is exactly why the bylaw was put in place, so that we didn't go down stripping down every tree on the side of a road, because otherwise the town will have this barren look. And one of the things that makes a town look rural and woodsy, as we like Groveland to look, and I know Boxford does the same thing, West Newbury does the same thing, is to preserve that tree canopy over the roadways if possible, you know, as much as safely possible. So I would like to spend a little time next fiscal year meeting with the highway superintendent, talking about what we're doing to maintain trees, and how are we identifying trees that need to be removed, and are we having a hearing if that tree is of sufficient age?
So there's the scenic roads bylaw.
Yes.
Which is what protects the certain trees, and the way that it's written, it only protects the trees when there's road work
I know.
being conducted. So that's what needs to be addressed, because currently, the way that the
Yes.
highway superintendent addresses the tree issue is that when there's a storm, or when there's, you know, the trees hanging over the roadway that are dangerous and that could be taken out by a storm, the proactive approach is to hire a contract, whether it be Collins or Mayer or whatever the contractor they use, to come and use those funds to actually either clean up those trees or take those trees down. So those are how they're identified, as those that are either fallen in a storm and they're doing cleanup, or those that are hazardous that could take out something during a storm, or hovering over a road and that could fall and be an issue. But you're right, the scenic roads bylaw needs to be updated, because currently it does not protect trees, only when you're doing road work.
But we can control the money that's put to take down trees. And I mean, we can certainly talk about it with the superintendent, because I understand there's the back and forth between looking at a tree that has boughs over road and saying whether or not it should come down. But at some point, I mean, we've all seen it, that the towns closer to Boston, where are the trees, right? They're not there, okay? So you do have to think about this, and I've watched this budget grow, and I'm just not sure, are we preserving the Elm Park trees with this, or are we just using this to contract out and cut down trees? I've never known for sure. So it's, for me, it's a conversation that would happen during the fiscal year, to get more information and more understanding.
Anybody else on highway? Nobody.
We didn't do emergency management.
Rubbish collection?
We're not doing that.
No questions on that?
Back to highway, fuel again. Didn't realize it much from 2022. It's a good bump from 2021.
Yes.
I don't have it up. Do you know, off the top of your head, where they are now with fuel? I could look it up, I'm sure I have it.
I can pull up the variance report though.
Can't find it?
Be the last variance.
I have to filter through the spreadsheet.
filters on this would help.
Budgeted was for, what, $15,000?
15 for 22.
And the ending balance at the latest March 2022 variance report was 4,250. So about 28.3% has been utilized.
Through March.
March 2022 is when I have for the variance report. There might have been a more recent one, that's the only one I have on my computer right now.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at now.
Except for snow plowing, they don't drive continuously around the town in their trucks.
No, but they do drive throughout town to do
Yeah.
work, whether or not it's to help out on
Yeah,
whatever that's being worked on.
yeah.
They're doing mowing, they're
Right.
driving to the fields, bringing the mowers to different fields, working on special projects that we have them do all the time.
Mhm.
March, April, May, June.
Anybody else?
Just a quick question. We implemented the on-call stipend in the latest contract. Is it implemented this fiscal year?
No.
Not
well,
yet?
yes, it is.
Okay, it is.
Because it's effective, the contract that was approved was effective as of, it's back dated to FY 22 in the beginning, so July 1 of 2021. We didn't have a contract in play, so they got their retro payment and their benefits. The only thing that didn't start officially was the on-call. That started when the contract was approved, because there's no way to have
Correct.
gone back and said who would have been assigned the on-call person. So as of that signature date, which I believe is last month, they will now have on-call pay to the rest of the year. And I talked to the highway superintendent before we had negotiated that, and he had stated that he had that money in his budget, that he could allocate elsewhere if needed to cover that.
Good. So it seems to be working out?
So far,
Good, good.
So Rebecca, the 10,750 that they've spent on fuel so far this year, and that's, all the bills are in for the end of March? There's nothing lagging out there that hasn't been paid or not accrued?
as of March. That's my understanding. I'd have to double check with the town accountant, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 months to go on that. Any other questions on highway? None. We did miss two. Let's go back to building department. Any questions on that? Nobody? Emergency management? Nobody? Rubbish collection?
I do have a question on rubbish collection.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just curious why the finance board had recommended an increase.
We agreed with the town administrator's recommendations.
I had made the suggestion because originally when we had estimated based upon the tonnage, I did not feel comfortable with the calculation, not knowing what the impact would be with the transfer to the 2 barrels. So the estimate was not something that I felt right about, so I had asked if they would increase it based upon what we originally had requested, based upon the tonnage calculation and the current contract.
Yeah, and we had that discussion that
and
Rebecca had
recommend.
said she felt that she needed to put a little bit more of a cushion in there.
And under that, what was the estimate on those overflow bags that was going to generate? Does anybody remember that? How much was that going to generate?
Actually, it's not the overflow bags that generates the
Makes sense.
significant savings. It's the movement of more of the tonnage into recycling. So at the time, the cost that I was looking at was $80 or $84 a ton for trash, and I believe the recycling, I believe we were paying like $30 to $32 a ton. So the savings was estimated that our recycling percentage as a town was low, like 11% compared to other towns in Massachusetts. And I was hopeful we could increase it just 5% maybe, and maybe move, that amount of tonnage, saving, approximately $50 a ton for every tonnage that we can move over. The overflow bags are more of a courtesy and a help to the homeowners, that if they do need to throw out more than the 2 barrels, there's a method to do that. If you do really have a big gathering, or you just have you have a lot of clean out you want to get done, and you want to just put it out, you can put it out and it'll get picked up. You can put out as many of those overflow bags as you'd like.
It was my recollection that we were supposed to generate, I don't know, like $1.50 a bag, or maybe
Well,
more than
yeah,
that.
but I
I
mean-
don't remember what that was. But what's the estimate that would generate on the sale of the bags?
The estimate on the sale of the bags is not of real consequence. It's like you make $2 a bag, so how much money do you want to make that way? That's not what the bags are about. Again, it's the real effort and the real push is to move tonnage into the recycling stream, because it's far lower cost, and it's the right thing to do. You know.
Right times, we'll make money on the commodity, on the recycling.
Right, and so, some of the thoughts I had is to try to create more of a picture brochure so people can understand a little better how much of the trash they're throwing out that can actually move into recycling, because they may not be completely aware of things that they could be recycling and they're not. And in addition, a public information campaign that even clothing and fabric that you consider not usable, there is a way to dispose of it rather than putting it into your trash, rather than pushing up our tonnage. Because the trash contract is not a fixed cost. We pay for the ton. And the more we can do to control that cost and get a good handle on it, the more possibly available funds for our town departments. When you talk about where are we going to find the money for 2 firefighters, where are we going to find the money for
Tree work.
for employees to get wage adjustments, you find it with diligence and hard work and looking at costs like trash that are increasing way beyond Prop 2.5%. Trash goes up, what, more than 5% a year? It's ridiculous.
But they wanted 7%.
And so it's stealing the money from our town departments. Look at it that way.
Okay.
There we go.
Any other questions on rubbish?
I get
Jason, were
excited.
you satisfied then?
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else?
It's so exciting.
Cemetery?
I cannot speak on this because my husband's a commissioner. You want me to step out? I could do that.
No, you don't need to step out.
If there's some questions, no questions on that? Okay. Next was Human Services, Board of Health. Any questions on the Board of Health? None. Council on Aging?
Understand we lost a van driver. Is our cost going to significantly increase trying to find another one?
We're getting, well, we had one van driver resign, but we posted the position to have the other van driver to hire, because we have a substitute who now fills in for that absent, van driver, but we have one that does like a Tuesday, Thursday, and the other one does like a Monday, Wednesday, to keep the hours down. It's like a full-time, otherwise it would get into the full-time run. But we are actively searching for a new, part-time driver.
Speaking of the van, have you ever explored the thing we talked about with the van?
I did ask about it, but I haven't received a follow-up from the MVRTA. I have a meeting with them scheduled on Friday, so I'm gonna talk to them more about that.
Yeah, I'd be interested. That's a significant amount of money right there.
If we can save a penny, I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Council on Aging, Veterans? Nothing on Veterans. Library? No questions on that?
Can I make one comment
Sure,
on
go
the
ahead.
library? This was the case where we had recommended, and the finance board voted unanimously to shave a small portion off of the tree maintenance budget and reallocate it toward the library. The library The Board of Trustees came here, they asked for some very modest salary adjustments to accommodate minimum wage adjustments and therefore pay equity issues. They really spoke very, they really were very supportive. They were a very cohesive group. The director really is so appreciative of the staff that she has. And so we all know that retaining staff is important because it becomes expensive to replace them. And we also have a dedicated volunteer board on the library. And I wanted to really hear the volunteer board and take their concerns well into consideration. It wasn't a large dollar amount that we had to reallocate in order to meet some of their requests. We didn't meet all of their requests. They had requested extra hours, and we couldn't accommodate that, but we accommodated some small pay adjustments to bring them in line with other departments within Town Hall and other libraries. And I just want to acknowledge that that we really appreciated the time and concern and effort that the volunteer board made and spoke on behalf of the library, and we appreciate our town volunteers. And we hear them. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the library? Bill?
Just one question. We got in trouble a few years back. Are we spending enough on materials and things that we
Yeah,
qualify?
I think that was an interim situation as well. But yes, we absolutely are. And that's noted in the budget and reviewed in the budget. And
Once bit, twice shy, so ever since then, I'm cognizant of that fact to make sure that
I hear you.
that left a scar, you know what I
That
mean?
hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt.
And we don't want to inflict pain
No,
like that again.
we
if
don't want to
can.
learn twice. Out of
Okay.
pocket.
All set on the library? Debt service? No questions on that?
Just-
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick question. I know it adds up to the 285, 800, but the breaking down of the principal into the long-term and the short-term principal, is there a reason for it? Why? Because it looks like it was all in one line, and now we have it in two lines. Or is it just coincidental that those numbers add up to 285, 800?
No, they should add up to 280.
Okay.
Short term is going to be anything to do within the next 12 months, and long term would be anything in excess of that. So
Oh.
the short term number should stay the same until the last year of the debt, and the long term is a number that should come down with each successive month.
As it matures.
Typically in accounting, if that was GAAP, in generally accounting principles, right? Thank you.
But it
Got an
doesn't-
applause over there.
But it doesn't look like it did that, I guess, right? Because it adds up to 285, 800. And it was, then before that, it was 265,000. So I don't know. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, they don't add up, but
Yeah, they don't.
the way it's split is right. It should be split up long and short term.
Okay,
I'm not
so
sure
the
why
split is appropriate, okay.
Why the 265, we must have added something.
We added the water, Chestnut, Union Street Chestnut job to the debt.
Okay, so there you go. So that's the addition to the, additional to the long term, and then you broke it up to show long and
The
short
debt
term.
is structured a little bit different. The payments actually don't go down.
Okay, any other
Same with the
questions?
interest.
Go ahead, Bill.
Same with the interest.
Unclassified? Nothing.
Yes,
Go ahead.
just the Essex County retirement contribution, I know is a percentage thing, but it's another budget buster. Is that percentage in line with, like, our increases in staffing, or is it just a reflection of retirement costs going up?
It's the retirement, we didn't have too many more retirees into the system,
Yeah,
but the cost itself
going.
went up substantially.
Okay.
So oh, sorry. Can I comment on that?
Sure, go
So one of the members of the finance board sits on the board of the Essex County Retirement Board. And at our last meeting, when we voted this budget, we asked about that and she spoke to it. And we talked about, you know, how the calculation is made and whether or not, you know, it's worth looking into, whether or not it's worth advocating. And it's a hard calculation. It is what it is. And she explained it was just the costs that are going up, the general costs, and that it's consistent with all the municipalities facing the same thing. This was about a 10% shift for us. So again, you know, it went from 620 to 680. That's a $64,000 shift. That's 10%. And this is what's making balancing the budget so difficult, is that trash goes up by, what was that, you
At
know,
least 5.
7-8%. Retirement contributions, which is a large number, goes up by 10%. Insurance goes up. And, you know, we've got a 2.5% increase that we can levy, so.
And that gets broken up too between the town, the light department, water and sewer as well. Other than full allocation.
Okay, other raise and appropriate articles. Nothing under that. Other non-appropriated expenses, any questions on that?
Oh, there was, Mr. Chair, there was one thing that I did change, and I have to go back to the finance board and let them know as well, is that, as you'll see in the warrant, there's a warrant article for, the adopted, for the town to adopt a state statute that allows us to charge, a fee for the sealer of weights and measures, which we currently don't do.
Right.
And essentially, we're losing money, and we do have the ability to break even, essentially, if to charge enough to cover the expense that we have to owe the state. And so we had that warrant article, but I didn't, in conferring with the town accountant, she corrected me, and I needed to make sure that it was offset in the revenue side of things, and then add it to the expenditure side of things. So I had to add the $750 to
Oh.
that line item, which is currently not reflected.
Yeah, there was something in there that some of the fees were $1.
Yeah, the fees that are in the statute are not they're not sufficient enough to cover what we need to cover. And so by adopting it, we already can charge a fee, but we can't charge any more than what the state statute allows. But going forward with the town meeting article allows us to set the fees higher in order to recoup what is necessary to pay the state. And that is essentially what we're trying to do. But I just didn't book it accordingly on the budget side of things, and the town accountant corrected me today, so it says 0 in the copy you have, but it should say $750. And
$750.
$750.
So it's a little number. It's a
Exactly. But
little
something
house
that-
cleaning item.
But that the finance board hasn't seen yet, so I.
We plan to circle back on a couple of things.
Okay.
I think we had tabled, well, we tabled the school budget.
Okay, that should take care of that, unless there's any questions going back, and we got on the other side, we got the free cash detail for the budget. Everybody looked at that?
Are we waiting on the education budgets, or?
We tabled it, the finance board tabled the education budget.
Do we want to take a vote on the omnibus budget, or do we want to do that at town meeting?
At this juncture, I'd be pleased to make a motion to support the recommendations of the finance board and the town administrator as made to date. And support those recommendations.
Okay, the motion is a second.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second, further discussion? None? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay.
So that should take care of that. And any questions on the free cash that's detailed?
I'll make one comment on the free
Go ahead.
cash, that I'm not looking at the same chart that you are, but just from my memory, we traditionally have put some money that we could into stabilization, and we recommended this year not to put anything into capital stabilization, given that we had the substantial amount of ARPA funds, and that could help free up, so to speak, some of the other available free cash for initiatives. So that's one change from prior years that you'll see there.
Okay. Any questions on that? None. Okay. Do we go to the town meeting warrant articles?
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll go one by one. Article 1. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to petition the state for any sum available under provisions of Chapter 90, said funds to be portioned and expended under the direction of the State Department of Public Works, Mass Highway, in accordance with said statutes, or take any other action thereto. Do we want to make a recommendation now, or do you want to do that on the town meeting
I
floor?
recommend favorable.
So, I did send out an updated, revised copy of the warrant.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
This isn't it?
The one that's printed is not it. I can give you a copy because you have a printed version, but I don't know if Bill and Kathy.
I have the
it.
electronic
I got the
version.
electronic one.
Electronic version, it has Article 1 as the, budgetary transfer.
Oh,
item.
no, I'm looking at the wrong one then. Wait a minute.
So I just sent it earlier.
Let me go back.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
All right.
I had to update, sorry, I had to update the fence bylaw and the other ones and finalize that today.
Hang on. I'm gonna have to go back. So,
I did send it out, right?
no,
Okay.
Yes,
I'm looking at
authorize,
5:16 PM, right? That should be it?
See if the town will vote for a fiscal year 2022 budgetary transfer of $27,000 from Essex Tech to computer hardware maintenance and license fees, or take any of their action there too.
I don't think I have
And
this.
that was done too because we typically have a special town meeting to handle items that are relative to the current fiscal year, but we did check with DOR and we are able to do it within our annual town meeting, and where there is only one transfer that's required to be voted by a town meeting, because anything to do with the municipal light department and the school, we just figured that it would make it easier to have it in the actual annual town meeting, and then it also alleviates the burden on the town clerk, because for a special town meeting, there's different registration requirements, and legally, I guess you're actually supposed to have people check in, and then once that meeting ends, everyone's supposed to leave, and then you're supposed to recheck in, and so there's.
We're not
other
doing
just
that.
Inconsistencies and things that are just not pleasant.
Okay, so,
Just added it.
so Article 1, I'm looking at it now. I'll move favorable action. We'll recommend favorable action.
Okay, is there a second?
We're just
I'll
voting on
second that.
recommend,
None
just,
from the
yeah.
second, further discussion? None. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 2. See if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to petition the state for any sum available in the provision of Chapter 90, said funds will be portioned and expended under the direction of State Department of Public Works in accordance with said statutes, or take any other action there too. We already had a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? None. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 3. See if the town will vote to transfer from the general fund $409, and appropriate said sum for Chapter 90 approved road work, said amount to be used pending reimbursement by the state. with such work to be done under the supervision of the highway superintendent, or take any other action relative thereto.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable.
Second
Motion
that.
And a second. Any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. One absent. 4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 4. See if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 98, Section 56, in its present form and as subsequently amended, which statute states the town, provides the town the ability to impose upon the owner of any establishment wherein devices subject to provisions of Chapter 98 of the general laws are used, the fees for sealing and inspecting, weighing or measuring devices are taken into the action thereto. That was what Rebecca mentioned earlier, and there was, somewhere in here was the
Appendix C.
actual, it was in the back,
Appendix C.
was the fees. Any question on that?
I'll move favorable action.
Oh, recommend favorable. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. Favor?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 5. Somebody want to read this?
Sure. See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Groveland General Bylaws, Section 2-42, by adding a new revolving fund to be known as the VZ Memorial Park Revolving Fund, as authorized by Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half of Massachusetts General Laws, as set forth below, and further to allow the Conservation Commission to expend funds not to exceed $130,000 during fiscal year 2023 from said account for expenses related to the operating costs, including salaries/wages of VZ Memorial Park, or take any action thereto. And this is said, it's currently authorized, the revolving fund does not account for expenditures related to salaries and wages. This article further clarifies the use of the revolving fund.
Any questions on that?
And you need one little space between exceed and
None.
130.
Mike?
What was the, Mike Dempsey, Conservation, what was the amount on that?
$130,000.
130?
Yes.
Can we change that to 140?
No.
We all look this way, if you noticed. We're like trained.
I mean, we set the spending limit, so we could alter it to 140.
Okay, the money is in there. Okay, so we'll take the friendly
Thank you, Mike.
amendment. Friendly amendment to 140,000.
So 140.
140,000, $140,000.
Okay. Now reads 140,000. We have a motion,
I'll make a motion that
Well-
we recommend favorable action.
yeah.
Second.
A motion and a second, further discussion? None. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Somebody want to read 6?
See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Groveland General Bylaw, Section 2-42, by adding a new revolving fund to be known as the Pines Maintenance Revolving Fund, as authorized by Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half of the Massachusetts General Laws, as set forth below, and further to allow the town administrator to expend funds not to exceed $50,000 during fiscal year 2023 from said account for expenses related to the operating costs, including salaries and wages of Pines Recreation Area, or take any other action relative thereto. It says in the note, as currently authorized, the revolving fund does not account for expenditures related to salaries and wages. This article further clarifies the use of the revolving fund. I'll make a motion that we recommend favorable action.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Rebecca, with respect to salaries and wages, that's basically the bathrooms, cleaning.
So we're currently paying McPherson to take care of those duties, but the revolving fund doesn't specify that we can use revolving funds for paying of salaries, so this just clarifies that.
Yep. Okay, and we get money for certain things like sponsors and field rent, that's gonna go in that,
Yes.
and you think 50,000 is a high enough ceiling?
We could increase it if you'd like to, based upon, I just went with what we had the last few years, because we haven't really exceeded that amount. But I do know that we're utilizing the field a lot more, so that could go up slightly.
Yeah, so that covers the, like, grub-X and fertilizer control in the preseason for the 2 ball fields and the back utility field. And as we do more fields coming this way, that'll increase, I imagine, right?
We could increase that amount if we'd like to. I don't know if you wanna increase it another $10,000 to $20,000. It's just the authorized expending limit, so it's whatever's in the account, so it's not as though we're expending any
Oh, yeah.
additional money, it's just whatever we spend up to. So we could actually add another 20,000 to give us some more wiggle room if we needed to within that fiscal year without having to worry about any restraints, if in fact the monies are there.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get those other 2 fields looking like, you know, the first utility field, it would behoove us, it's gonna take money to keep them that way, you know?
So what do you think? Do you think another 20,000?
I think that's a good figure. I mean, I think that's fair.
So $70,000?
Okay, so we're recommending favorable action on this article with the amended amount of $70,000. And that's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion. Thank you. Motion and a second. Further discussion? None. All in favor?
I,
4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 8.
what about 7?
Oh, yeah, 7. I'm sorry,
7.
7?
Yeah. We're getting rid of an article.
See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Groveland General Bylaw, Section 2-42, striking the zoning board of appeals revolving fund as follows, or take any other action relative thereto. This is submitted by the town planner. Since the creation of the Economic Development Planning Conservation Department, the zoning board administrative tasks have been assigned to the town planner, and therefore the revolving account is no longer needed.
I'll make a recommendation of favorable action.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second.
I just-
Question, go ahead.
I just asked, well, now any monies that would have gone there will go into our general fund?
That is correct.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Bill.
Will any of those monies be needed in the area of economic development and planning?
I mean, obviously, I think the department could use more money, but.
Well, I mean,
But I mean.
you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, those monies were going towards like posting advertisements in the newspaper and things of that nature. And we put that burden on the applicant to put those in place. And then it was to pay for a consultant to come in and help push those applications. But where Annie's already fulfilling that role, it's really not necessary. So they weren't even enough to cover what we really needed them to cover, because we don't bring in that many zoning board of appeals applications.
And other than that, it's a pass-through. We're charging them postage, they pay the postage, net
Exactly.
zero. Okay.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor?
All right.
4 in favor, 1 absent. Article 8.
I motion to dispense with the reading of it and just read the note at the end.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of dispensing with the reading? That's a long one.
All right.
4 in favor. I got some questions on this one.
Do you want me to read the note first?
Sure, if you want.
The current bylaw regulating building numbering and street naming is overly simple or not existent. The purpose of the change is to reiterate the requirements of Mass General Law relative to building numbering and provide guidance for where to locate numbering so an address can be easily found. This will also provide guidance for developers and town boards to implement a consistent methodology to our numbering and to prevent confusing or redundant street names.
The question, I have, go ahead, Bill, did you have something?
No, not yet.
The question I had under, probably under 2.1, does this does this apply to existing structures?
My understanding is it's moving forward.
Then it should be noted in there that current structures are grandfathered in. And being in town, as long as I have, if it's not written down, it never happened. So I think there should be something in there that says existing structures are grandfathered in. That was first comment. The second, I noticed under 5.1, 5.1B, and this refers to the numbering on the buildings. All reasonably sized numerical figures for building numbers shall be at least 3 inches in height, unobstructed by vegetation or other materials, in contrasting color to the background, and in conspicuously placed location facing the street. If you notice, unobstructed by vegetation or other materials, I believe that also should be in C, where if it's more than 100 feet from the street, numbers shall be placed on a freestanding post or mailbox. And obviously, if somebody has a post office box, they don't have a mailbox, so the post would suffice. But that should also say unobstructed by vegetation or other materials, because you could plant vines or something around the box and you would never see it. Comment on that? I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't want, if you're gonna have the numbering on new stuff put up appropriately, it should be visible. Why can't you just say, make sure it's visible?
Bill, you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to object to your first comment about the grandfathering, and I'm going to give you a great example. It happened to me. I bought a home, 62 Gardner. The house is really an park. I watched utility vehicle after police vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. I'd chase up and down Gardner Street because they couldn't find the house. Until one day, the chief of police called me at work and said, "We're changing your address immediately because I just sent an officer to find your house and it took him 45 minutes." So, under those circumstances, if I had been grandfathered in, I'd still be chasing utility vehicles up and down Gardner Street looking for 62 Gardner when it's actually on Elm Park. So, I'm not sure that's going to work for everybody, especially someone that could be in my situation down the road. It was a bear.
Well, that raises another question, is why should somebody, like in your comment, why should somebody have the right to change your address? Because now you've got to change
Everything.
the registry of deeds, you've got to change
Mortgage,
mortgages,
the
the whole
phone
9 yards.
company, the
And I don't
gas
think that's
company,
right.
electric company.
Right.
Well, it's better than I call 911 that I have an emergency, a kid drowned, I've got an electrocution, and 45 minutes later, they pull up to my house saying, "Oh my God, thank God we found you." And I said, "Well, now you can call the coroner because I don't need you anymore." You know what I mean? It's been 45 minutes since I called.
Well, maybe,
So-
maybe that's changed a little bit with the advent of GPSs, that if, it'll bring you right to the address in most cases. And I'm sure there's others in the same boat, but when I spoke to the post office, for instance, and asked about delivery, and their comment was, it doesn't really matter because it all goes into the computer. We can do 2, 4, 6, 40, 22, 20, it doesn't matter. It spits it out. But as far as the GPS, everybody uses that today. And I don't see how how that would be a problem today. Maybe a few years ago it would have been. I don't know how long ago you had that problem, but I don't think you would today.
I would hope not, but again, I think my worry is always trying to guard against unintended consequences.
And
And, you know, everything we do or don't do has consequences one way or the other, and I don't want to see anybody in a position like I was in, where it's just impossible to find your home because it's just not correctly numbered or addressed properly.
well, I just look at the
And if you
hassle
stick 'em in that
to
hole-
change your address, and you got a double whammy with a different street that, but I just think to go through that expense, put the homeowner through that expense to change their address on all their documents, I think that's ridiculous, and that's what I was getting at here, is I don't think they should have the right to do that.
Yeah, but take it from me, it wasn't that much of an expense or an inconvenience to know that in an emergency, they can find me in a heartbeat.
Sam is actually on a Zoom call, if you want to ask him specifically about the grandfather.
Sure.
So I might have answered it incorrectly. Sam, can you hear?
I don't know if he can hear us or not.
Yep, I can hear you.
We're talking about Article 8, the numbering, and I asked if we could put in there present dwellings or businesses grandfathered in. So just it doesn't happen that you have to go to the expense of changing your address.
Can you say that again, Ed?
Present businesses and residents, I'd like to see it grandfathered in so that people don't have to go to the expense of changing their address or changing their house number. And it is a pain in the neck when you have to change your deed, you have to change your mortgage, and
Nope, none of that's part of this. This is just an extension of the Mass General Law that requires you to number your house. And what this does is gives guidance as to how to number it appropriately.
well,
So there
I
would be
agree with you.
no retroactive enforcement to change street names, change numbering. It just gives us a process internally to number the houses in a consistent way.
I agree with you, but, you know, I've been around here long enough that I know that if it's not written down, it never happened. So I'd like to see some kind of an amendment that grandfather in present dwellings and residences, so people don't have to be forced to change their address. And it could happen, because come 10 years down the road, they want to make somebody change their address, and if this isn't, well, geez, I remember they talked about that. If it's not written down, Sam, it never happened.
Right, but we
You agree?
cannot, if people are not in compliance now, I could take action now under the Mass General Law. So, and we can't grandfather non-compliance from that Mass General Law.
And the other thing that I brought up is about the building numbering. If they have, if the building is more than 100 feet from the street, freestanding mailbox or a post, and I just said that it should be listed also under, the same as under B, unobstructed by vegetation or other materials. Because you could have a mailbox or a post out there and plant shrubs around it, and you could never see it.
Yep, I agree. You need to see the mailbox.
Doesn't that make sense that that should be also listed in there, unobstructed from vegetation?
Sure, I agree with that part. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything. And again, the intent here is not to try and be the address police. If I wanted to do that, I got Mass General Law already to let me be the address police. It's really for the purposes laid out at the beginning, which is, 911 deliveries are a problem as they become more, more, those services are used more and more. It's the same bylaw that actually we're proposing in West Newbury as well, because we run into the same thing where we have emergency vehicles, or even myself, if it's not an emergency, but it's frustrating to drive up and down the street looking for an address and it's not clearly marked. For me, it's an inconvenience. For emergency responders, it could be life or death. And that's why I discussed it with the police and fire chief in West Newbury, and also talked to Chief Valentine regarding, just having some clarity on this. Simple things, like I went to a house the other day where they had black numbers on a black mailbox. And most people, when I bring it up to them and say, hey, did you realize this is hard to see? They willingly change it. And the fines, the only reason they're in there is they're already in that Mass General Law. In 20 years, I've never fined anyone for having an address, that didn't meet the current general law. It's really more a guidance piece to help people understand how to do it and where we'd like it placed. The grandfathering part, I don't see how we can accomplish that, because Mass General Law wouldn't allow us to let someone opt out of properly numbering their home. And as far as existing, there's no reason to change existing addresses. I'm not looking to create more work for me, for the assessor, or for anyone else. You can support it, you can ditch it. I wrote it just out of a need because there's some confusion and clarity issues in both towns.
So this is no, you can't change it, no amendments to it?
Oh, I can make amendments, like you said, the obstruction to the mailbox as far as vegetation, absolutely. As far as it being grandfathered, because it's Mass General Law, I can't circumvent Mass General Law and allow that grandfathering. They specifically, exempt the addressing from being grandfathered because they feel for public safety, every address needs to be posted.
So how do you add under building 6, the unobstructed?
Say again?
How do you add under 6C, unobstructed by vegetation? How do you add that if you can't change the Mass General laws?
No. We can put conditions on how you number to give guidance, and saying please don't obstruct your number is fine. What we can't do is, if someone doesn't have a house that's properly numbered, or it's not visible, or just not existent, say that they don't have to put a number up, and that's the type of grandfathering we can't allow. It's just not.
That's not what I was looking for.
If I decide, a good example in Newbury, I had a house that they wanted to be number 1 on the street because they were the first house, and they were in fact number 7 by their deed, but would number their house number 1. We can't allow that. It causes confusion with a lot of things. So with this numbering, again, most of the time when I do a site visit and say, hey, can you please, it was difficult to find it. Can you put a number on your mailbox? Can you get new numbers, contrasting numbers, whatever the case is? Most people want people to be able to find them for deliveries, even if it's just for a pizza. It's those, again, are inconveniences. The police, fire, ambulance are life safety items that this would help them find these locations.
Okay.
Point of information, I think in response to your concern, Chairman Watson, the numbers themselves cannot be obstructed by vegetation. So it doesn't matter where they are, whether they're on a pole or the house. Section B refers to just the numbers itself. So I think your concern about it being on a freestanding post, it's the number, and Section B would apply. It can't be covered by vegetation. At least that's how I read it.
Yeah, I don't
On
read
Section
that.
B, it says reasonably sized numeric figures, 3 inches, unobstructed by vegetation. That applies to both A and C. Those are the house numbers.
In contrast in color, the background and inconspicuously placed location facing the street. But
Right.
that's actually on the building.
Nope.
If the building is more than 100 feet from the street, Numbers shall be placed on a freestanding postal mailbox at least 4 and 6 feet above the ground level.
In section B, it says,
Okay, we're not gonna split hairs with that.
well, no, it just applies.
I read that, I read it differently than the way you do, but we can argue from here until
Doomsday.
doomsday, and I know that I just think it ought to be spelled out, but if nobody agrees with it, then,
Yeah, I don't think clarification's a problem.
okay. All right,
I do have a question on 4.2. It says that the Board of Selectmen has the final authority to designate the name of the subdivision and streets.
So typically with a subdivision, the planning board would approve, and through, I forget what the section is in our subdivision bylaws, it gives them the authority to name the streets.
Right.
This would have me be the secondary approval on it, just to make sure that there's nothing they're not thinking of, like a rhyming name or something along those lines. If there happened to be a conflict at some point where we disagreed, and I doubt that would ever happen, I just wanted to have I guess an arbiter to determine, should it be that or shouldn't it be? I can't imagine it would ever happen, because I mean, it's pretty clear the streets shouldn't rhyme, they shouldn't use the same names, but I just wanted to cover all bases where you've got two people or two entities weighing in on the, approving the names of any new streets.
Yeah.
A board and one person. I wanted to make sure that if there was ever a disagreement, there was a place to go. I think that'd be the place to go anyway, but now it's just in the bylaw as well.
Okay.
I see Sam Jocelyn Boulevard coming down the
I was
pike.
thinking Kathy Lane.
I think Sam Jocelyn Boulevard sounds much better.
Boulevard's.
That's right. They're all just going to be named, some rendition of my name going forward. That's really what the impetus behind this bylaw is I want streets named after me in Groveland.
Just make sure they're all two-way streets, not one-way streets, right?
Absolutely,
all
absolutely.
right. Was there
And
a
through streets
motion and
only.
a second on
Could I
that?
just make one quick comment on
Go ahead.
that? That I live on a redundant named street. The extension of my street has the same street name as my street. I'm on a lane, they're on a circle. We're good friends, we work it out, but it's a daily problem. And so, thank you, Sam. I think this is a really,
Yeah, I do get complaints
Important
from people with,
Change.
issues of delivery, that they're constantly getting someone else's
delivery,
mail or
it's
constantly
all
getting
kinds of
packages, and there's
services that we've
anything we
had
can do.
confusion for, so.
Retroactively, not really, unless, we wanted to go through the effort of renaming the street. That's not my,
No, but going forward, I
that's
think
nothing
that's
I
a
want to get
smart.
involved in. But yeah, I hear you.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Sure.
Okay, was there a motion on that?
We recommend favorable action. I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
And a motion and a second, further discussion, none, all in favor? 4 in favor. Article 9, see if the town will vote to amend its general bylaws to add section 4, 3 hours of construction, or take any other action relative thereto. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Sam, I got a question on that too.
Sure.
Hours of construction, B, last one, Sundays and federal holidays, work is prohibited. And then the next line, work performed outside the hour due to emergencies with the approval of the building inspector. But under Sundays and federal holidays prohibited, shouldn't that be permit from the Board of Selectmen to allow Sunday or holiday work?
I don't know, other than an emergency, what or why you'd authorize it, but I mean, we can. I just felt, for the most part, I don't want my neighbors working on their houses when I'm having a barbecue, unless, if a car drive through it and there's an emergency, absolutely. If it's just because they want to get it done and work on the 4th of July, I really don't want to hear the roofers over there while I'm having a cookout. And that was kind of my reasoning for it. And what I usually hear from the townspeople is, the last one we had was Graham Lane. A guy was bored while his wife was cooking, went and started doing work on Thanksgiving. The neighbors were none too happy. there was no good reason for him to be there other than he was trying to stay out of his wife's way, which maybe is a good reason. But barring an emergency, most contractors try not to work Sundays if they can help it. If you want, we can amend it to whatever you would like. I just thought those were pretty reasonable hours from looking at other towns that have these types of regulations. Again, either way, you won't hear it from my house.
Yeah, I think they ought to go before the Board of Selectmen and get permit to work on Saturdays and Sundays. Special permit.
Because currently it goes, when the planning board has subdivisions and when we have commercial projects, they have construction hours that are part of their decision and part of their approval process. And it does say that they're prohibited for working on Sundays and federal holidays unless, in fact, they get approval from the building commissioner. So we do have something in place, but this just makes it across the board, so you don't have to put it as part of the decision. So there is an approving authority of some sort.
Yeah, so right now, the subdivision regs give that authority or the planning board conditions it. I can approve work outside of the normal hours. I just mirrored that for your, regular single-family lots and other permits.
Okay. I just think it ought to go before the Board of Selectmen for Saturday.
Well, the only problem with
Federal
that
holidays
is,
work.
so if someone wants to work on a Sunday because they call me up, they're roofing on Saturday, it's supposed to rain Monday, and they want to finish up Sunday, are you guys going to hold a meeting?
No.
That would be under emergency, I would think.
That's an emergency?
Yeah, that's a tarp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not an emergency.
But
Sorry.
that's something where I would say, yeah, if you got a couple hours of work Sunday to finish your roof up because it's going to rain late Sunday afternoon, get on it. I don't know if it's a great example, but just things of that nature where it may be more timely to have someone that's available, 6-7 days a week. I try not to be that available, but I am.
Okay.
I did just send him a text message and he just ended up popping on Zoom, so he is readily available.
Who is?
Sam.
Oh,
So I'll make a motion for the Board of Selectmen to recommend favorable action on this.
I'll second it.
a motion and a second, further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna oppose. 3 in favor, 1 opposed. That was, we're up to Article 10. Somebody want to read that?
Sure, to see if the town will vote to amend its general bylaws, add a section 823 fences, or take any action relative thereto. And I'll just go through the note. The rules regulating the placement of fences are a constant concern of individual installers and abutters. This bylaw will help give guidance as to what the requirements for installation are, when a permit is required, and who is responsible for the correct placement and installation of the fence.
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
4 in favor. Article 11.
Move favorable action.
You'll read it. To see if the town will vote to amend Section 2-41 of the general bylaws, the senior citizen property tax work-off program by deleting the strike-through language, which is 40,000 annual household income, and and take other action there too. So basically eliminating the household income. Married individuals, 55,000, but it'll, we're just deleting all of that. There'll be no annual household income requirement for the tax work-off program.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Article 12 appears to be in the same vein. Move favorable action.
Okay? That's
Second.
for the veterans. All in favor of that? Well, we need a motion and a second.
I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion,
Second.
and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. 13, Bill, you want to read it?
See if the town will vote to amend section 2-143 membership A of general bylaws by striking the word 5 and replacing it with the word 7, or take any other action relative thereto. So the council on aging shall consist of 7 members, of which at least 51% shall be elders over 60 years of age.
And that was submitted by the Council on Aging.
Well, they want more members.
You want more members on the
I'll
account?
recommend, but we recommend favorable action. I'll motion for that.
Motion, second. I'll second that. Further discussion? All in favor?
Yeah,
Jason, you have a
discussion.
question?
No, Bill has a question first.
I have a question. Just,
Go ahead.
will moving from 5 to 7 inhibit, or do they have enough volunteer, to fill that requirement?
They said they do, and they were ready to appoint somebody before I said that they couldn't because they didn't have that many members.
They probably appointed them anyway.
Okay. Just want to make sure there's enough that we don't increase the,
I mean, I'm hesitant of that because I know that they went from a larger board to a smaller board at one point in time because they didn't have enough members. But
and they
made
couldn't do
their-
business.
But they made their request and they have 2 people that they're looking to add to their board.
And next year, when 2 people retire, will we have to go back to 5 in order for them to do business? I mean, you know what I mean? Are they making a mistake by asking for that?
They seemed pretty confident they did what they were required to put forward the amendment. They held their own hearing. I think it was all voted in favor except for 1. So of their 5-member board, only 1 opposed.
Okay.
Do you trust him? Do you trust him?
Sure.
Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Article 14, Bill, you want to read that one too?
No, I don't have good eyes.
To see the town will vote to amend its zoning bylaw to add the definition of caretaker unit to section 50-2.1, terms defined, or take any action relative thereto. Currently, the bylaw prohibits an owner to live on a site at their business or have a caretaker on site to monitor the property after hours. This change would allow a dwelling unit to be added as an accessory use to a business or industrial use. This change could provide living quarters for a business owner or provide security and income if occupied by a caretaker. So I read this, and I think Article 15 follows in the same, is it? Yeah, same thing, and I don't know how I feel about, like, allowing basically a cottage or apartment to just get built on any commercial industrial site. I just, I don't know.
Is Sam still on?
He's logging right back on.
Yeah, I just,
Where is he?
He just texted me.
Oh.
He's logging right.
my concern would be that, like, someone can just have a small garage, and now they can build an apartment and rent it out and say that person's their caretaking of their garage, right?
Yeah.
Or a storage unit, the storage unit. You could put a apartment there, instead of renting storage units, now you're renting an apartment, but you call them a caretaker. And I guess, I don't know, I have concerns about that.
Well, I have concerns about that you'd be allowing residential dwellings in a business or an industrial zone in an existing building, and I'm not sure that that's wise.
Yeah, good
Bill,
point.
you had something?
I feel the same way. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think you're putting potentially people's lives at risk. I mean, are these dwellings going to have,
I'm back on if I can be of any help.
Sure, go ahead. You want to comment on that? We're on Article 14, the caretaker's unit.
Yep, sorry for cutting out early on you. I thought I was done.
Oh, you did that on purpose.
So the reason this came to be is we have a few businesses in town in the industrial zone that would like it. And currently they're the only location that can't have residential. The business zone, when you look at downtown, All of those are mixed use with residential or above, not all, but a good number of them. Stockton Cronk is a good example. The realtor that's down there, Jerry's Variety, all of those have residences above. The industrial zone, the majority of the makeup of it right now is actually residential single-family homes. There is a little bit of interest from a couple parties that would like to have a caretaker unit or even a unit for themselves on site. And I put that in there. Again, this is one of those, I have no horse in the race. Most of the articles that I generate are usually from requests from townspeople. So I know one of them that specifically requested is Mr. Baldini. His initial plan came in with a small unit above. We turned him down because we don't allow it. We did have subsequently a couple of other requests for that, which I've turned down that are interested in it. So that's why I think, if it was easy enough to add that and put it in the same way we do the accessory apartments, just accessory to a use in the industrial zone. And it is by special permit, so it has to be something that our planning board would approve of as far as not only site plan review, but the appropriateness of it. Do we want someone over the chemical aspect or the factory portion of Chesterton? Probably not. Is it different if you have something that's an office that shuts down at 4 o'clock every day and then the tenants get home from work? Maybe. Again, so it's just the thought of, or I guess the idea that someone brought to me of every other zone is allowed to utilize the, accessory apartment except for there. And there are examples. There's one on Federal Way. There's a caretaker unit in there. On SD, right above the main building, we have a caretaker's unit there. And these were all done through special permit back before it was disallowed with, I think when Jim Freer was on the planning board, and we reorganized, they pulled that when we put the use chart in. So it's just something that was not directly allowed before, but I think was not addressed. So there was a few that snuck through. And now people are asking for it here and there. I don't think it'll be a big impact, maybe a couple, but I figured, if it's easy enough to put in and people want it, great. If they don't, then that's fine too.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sam, do you think that would potentially entice more business owners to look at Groveland as being a viable option?
And that was one of the thoughts, when we look at someone like Baldini, who's a small business, having that either a space to live, I think with him, he's not going to live there, but to have an extra income to help pay that mortgage. And not only that, even if that person is not necessarily security, by having someone on site during the off hours that will notice cars coming in, especially right now with building materials being as expensive they are. You look at your copper prices, the wire prices for electric, any of that. If I had a business, I'd prefer to have someone on site, and especially if I can make some extra money off it. So, and maybe that's one of his employees. I don't know. That's up to him. But it was just one of those that was part of the consideration. Is not only new growth, limited growth in school systems. That's why it's the 2-bedroom. Not that you can't have a kid in 2 bedrooms, but less likely. And then giving these business owners a little bit of maybe an incentive to move to Groveland. One of the big problems we have, and why we're looking at overrides, is we have no commercial base, as you all are real familiar with. And all the taxes are on the burden of the residents, not on any businesses. So if we want to attract them, this could be, I don't think it's a huge draw, and we're not going to have an influx, but at least it's another carrot.
Anybody else got a question for Sam?
Yeah, I do.
Kathy, go ahead.
So this is in the industrial zone, which I assume by the label industrial allows things that we don't allow in the commercial zone. Is that correct?
So we have no commercial zone. We have a business or industrial.
Okay, so you have
The
business,
business does allow residential in it.
yep.
Industrial does not.
But
And
what,
again, that goes back to Jim Freer, who wanted to limit the houses there, because, you know, typically when an industry goes next to a residence, you have complaints of odors, noises, traffic, those types of things, which I understood and I somewhat agreed with. With this, if you're in a caretaker unit on site, I think you pretty much know what you're getting into when you move in. It's not like a factory move next door to your house. It's you moving above the business. So I think it was a little different.
well, I guess I'm thinking yes and no. I'm assuming in the industrial zone, we allow chemicals and other things that we wouldn't allow in the commercial or business zone, correct? Okay, so
Yes, but there has
that's
to be
what I'm sort
controls.
of struggling with is like, once you approve these additional rental units, they can transfer ownership, they can transfer who lives there. We're not in a position as a town, as a small town, to monitor who's living there and whether or not we end up with a bus stop at the end of the industrial zone because somebody moved in with a child and they're living next door to, I guess I don't know enough about what's in our industrial zone to know for sure what could or couldn't happen. I realize what you're saying. It's a way for a business to supplement their income, because now they could have someone on site watching over things, plus they get the rent. I guess I would prefer to see us change the zoning if it's that safe than just to all of a sudden allow this in an industrial zone, which allows, I'm assuming, certain types of activities that we don't allow near residentials, right?
Yes, well, to give you an idea, in the industrial zone, what's in it is
Yeah.
residential houses.
And,
And Daley's project of the 40B will be in our industrial zone. There will be bus stops. It's right on Salem Street.
correct, I understand that part, so.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying we can go build a house in an industrial zone, but a company that builds a building in there can't build a caretaker unit?
So right now, an empty lot in the industrial zone, you could not build a house. We do not allow new residential,
Okay,
other than a 40B, because that bypasses our zoning. So the only uses in industrial are those identified, which does not include residential. So most of those residential homes that are there are grandfathered, pre-existing, non-conforming. So this, it doesn't fix that problem of the other residential, but it does, allow a mixed use with a residential component for a single 900 square foot unit.
You have anything, Bill?
Just a comment, more or less. I mean, the owners would like the extra income from the rent. And if I'm going to pay rent, I'm not going to be a caretaker. So it almost kind of contradictory in what they want. If they want a caretaker, then the rent has got to be free, or else I'm not watching your property. And if
That's
it's
up to the owner.
But from what you say, it's the owners are looking for a little extra income. They're looking for a little extra income. They're looking for rent. If I'm paying rent, I'm probably not going to be a caretaker to someone else's property if I'm renting.
If I give you the option of, $1,500 a month, or if you keep an eye on my property while you're there, you can give me $1,000 a month.
Now I've got to weigh. Is it worth $500 a month to be your security guard?
Well, and again, it's not necessarily being security, or it's just someone that would live on site that would deter, anyone being there, and to just keep an eye, essentially they'd be a body on the property during off hours.
Yeah, for all intents and
Whatever agreement that
purposes.
would be between the owner and the tenant, whether they're truly security, whether they're just there and, hey, if you see a car come on site, do me a favor and call the cops if it looks suspicious. which I think anyone would do anyway if that was their home. So it's really just opening up another option for some of the businesses that may go into that zone, that they just don't have that option right now.
Yeah, and what this town
And
needs
they are
is,
limited to one per building.
and as far as attracting business, I mean, this town needs an Amazon distribution center to help us with the tax rate, and that's not something any of us would be for. So what type of really business are you going to attract that's gonna make any significant impact on the town's tax structure that won't be detrimental to the town's overall, appearance and it's, I don't know.
Oh, no. If I had a crystal ball, it'd be easy.
Oh, heck, yeah. So, me
Again,
too.
it's just, we don't offer a lot. We don't have sewer down there currently. Hopefully it'll come. Small businesses like a Baldini or a Daniels, maybe that makes the difference of them coming here or going across to Haverhill or picking somewhere else. And, and if that's what the town prefers, okay. Or if they just think they'll go there anyway, even without the caretaker option, okay. It was more, again, my requests are at the requests of the folks that come into my office and say, hey, why don't we allow this? This would make sense. And if I get a couple people asking and it's an easy change or something that I think might make sense, I'll throw it out there. And again, if it's something the town looks at and goes, hey, this is not what we want, that's fine too. It's just another means to possibly add some value to the industrial zone, which right now is essentially Chesterton and a bunch of really small businesses, that are I don't know how much they add to town.
Right. Hey,
Jason, you had a question?
Yes. Is there, well, if they are allowed to have the apartment above there, that would increase the value of the property. Would that be correct?
I would assume so.
Yeah. And would it be better to limit it to one bedroom to ensure that we don't have kids going to the school?
You can. The reason I went with the 2-bedroom, 900 square foot was I was just mirroring the accessory apartments we allow throughout the rest of town. That's all.
The only reason why I brought that up is because I know that some of the large complexes that Haverhill's going in is going to be primarily studios and one-bedrooms. And I think that might be a way around adding to the school system.
Yep. If the board wants to amend it to a smaller size unit with less bedrooms, that's fine too. If they want to scratch it and hit delete, that's okay too.
I got a question for you, Sam. Could you weigh, Article, was it 14, 15?
Yes.
14 and 15, could you weigh in on why the planning board recommended unfavorable action on that?
There was one member who didn't like the term caretaker unit because he may not be caretaker, which in that definition, it says that it just, pretty much could be anyone that's living on site, but he didn't like the actual term caretaker. The reason I use the term caretaker is again, it's just a standard term for those types of apartments. That was pretty much it. The other two were on board. He just wasn't comfortable with it for whatever reason. But mainly it seemed like he didn't like the term caretaker's unit.
So what was the vote on planning board?
2-1, 2 for, 1 against.
Then how do you get unfavorable action with a 2-1 vote in favor?
I just felt I'd rather have the full board okay it. I'm not sure why it shows as unfavorable or not. That would be, Rebecca could better answer that as to whether you get a full board. I'm not sure what qualifies as favorable. If it's just a majority, a simple majority, a super majority.
Yeah,
I
but
just
they had a
I
quorum.
just asked the questions.
That's favorable.
All right, what did you have for a vote?
You have to be 3 out of the 5.
No, it
Rebecca?
doesn't.
I thought I mean, I assumed that if there was, no, it was, yeah, there was 5 members. I thought the vote was 1-2. But I thought it was against, no, it was in favor?
One in favor and 2 against?
It was
No, it was 2 in favor, 1 against.
Oh, then it's favorable.
So it's a favorable. I can
Yeah.
change that.
Oh, maybe it's possibly recorded wrong then.
That's
Okay, so
right.
that should read that the planning board recommends favorable action?
Yeah.
I'd have to check with Annie to make sure the vote was what I thought it was, but potentially yes.
So there was 5 members, 2 people didn't vote?
That's correct.
2 were not present, correct.
Okay, okay. All right, somebody want to make a motion?
Well, can I just ask one more question, because I'm just still
Sure.
thinking on this so much. So we have that industrial zone, which I guess, well, we're supposed to have an industrial zone? Are we required to have an industrial zone?
I'm not sure if we're required to. I would think possibly. I know we're supposed to have other zones for business, but I don't know, towns break them down differently. I'm not sure what the exact legality of what you should have is. Usually you have an industrial zone separate from your business zone because it tends to be more factory production, warehouses versus storefronts and offices.
Well, we have a
So
40.
it kind of distinguishes that a little bit better.
But we have a 40B going into our industrial zone, so that's not going to be, it's going to have.
No, they get to skip zoning because they're
Yeah.
40B.
Yeah, so.
They can slap it wherever they'd like.
So would it be easier if we just changed the zoning?
Possibly, and I think, at some point, I know Rebecca and Annie are looking at redoing the master plan. And it
Okay.
may be that we need to adjust the lines.
Because I just, like I said, I just keep looking at this and I'm just not sure, it's kind of outside my area of expertise and knowledge base, but,
Well, I think that's the one thing that we do have going for us is anything has to go through the planning board. And that's the
Well-
catch.
well,
If it's not gonna go above something that should have a place, then that's their
okay,
stop.
but here's my concern, and I'll just say it, maybe I'll put my foot in my mouth here, but if the planning board is at all on the fence on this, which it sounds like they are, potentially, we vote this through, then they turn somebody down, that person sues the town, right? Because they applied for this and the planning board has now said no.
Well, it's a as of right for a special permit.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying, that the minute one permit goes through and one doesn't, I mean, just, this is,
They have more leniency, but yes, it could be appealed.
yes, and again, this is how we get ourselves into these predicaments where I feel like if we don't really have an industrial zone to begin with, which it sounds like we don't, if we don't really have it anyway, why are we labeling it zone, industrial? Why don't we just change the zoning?
Well, the entire industrial zone is our aquifer. So where else would we put our industrial zone?
Well, if we don't need one, then we don't need one. And, well, that's what I'm saying, the whole complication seems to be because it's labeled industrial zone. What's the disadvantage to Groveland of changing that zone? What do we lose?
We want to attract businesses, and you wouldn't put businesses in the residential zone.
Well, yeah, but they're not flocking in anyway if we change it to the commercial, to the business zone, then the businesses can do like they do downtown. They all have
Well, for
apartments
example,
upstairs.
we do have, Baldini and Daniels building there. We had Brad Liggles put in a storage facility.
Right,
There's potential for development on the Saka property that's being looked at right now. With the 40B going in, sewer will be brought down there most likely, which is going to increase the potential for that zone.
well, again, my question is, what is the disadvantage of changing it to a business zone?
It's just a different type of use. Industrial is used, like their business is a different. Chesterton is a different type of business. It's an industrial use. Like we don't allow car repair shops unless you're in the industrial district. You can only do it in you can't have a car repair shop in the business. So like Salem Street, 97, Fadi's Place, and all the one on Federal Way. Those are all industrial buildings. So they're more
Okay.
like machine and industry oriented, whereas the business is more like office, commercial, retail, like those types of. So it's just a different use. So you just have to be more thoughtful about how you plan to zone in the future. I wouldn't eliminate an industrial zone, but I mean, maybe there's a bigger issue at hand here, essentially.
Right, well, that's why I'm just not sure. Like, the gas station where the pizza place is, that's industrial zone? They have apartments
Yep.
upstairs there, so they have apartments there. And the
In
person
the-
next door is
above
selling
the
the
gas
land.
station?
The one up on 90, yeah, the one up across, well, almost in Georgetown, that one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
initially, he did want to put an apartment up above it for himself, to stay there again, to save money and to, you know, basically put all his eggs in one basket. He'd have his business there, a leased portion and an apartment, but again, we would not let him have his apartment in his own building because it's not allowed currently in the in the industrial zone.
So the apartment that's there is now empty. Maybe
There
we're
is
talking
no
about two different
apartment at
places.
the garage.
Not the garage, I'm talking about the gas station, pizza, Nicole's strip mall.
Oh, I was thinking of.
Is that the industrial zone?
Patty's place further down,
Oh,
the new garage.
we're on different planes. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. It just concerns me that, it doesn't
So
really,
is there apartments above Nicole's?
I thought so, yeah,
And
used to be.
So again, they're just pre-existing non-conforming, so those would currently not be allowed. And even moving forward with this, only one apartment would be allowed. Above Hub 97, same thing, he's in the industrial zone, he's got 2 apartments, only
Yeah.
one would be allowed. On Federal Way, one of the buildings has a caretaker unit in it. It would be limited in size, where that one, I think, was just conditioned by the planning board. So we've got more of these in town that are grandfathered in than actually allowed at this point. Which is kind of, considering that there's that many in town
Right.
that are already above the businesses, both in the business zone and industrial zone. And now the new folks that are coming in, we're telling them, no, you can't do what everyone else has, because we changed our table, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and changed that, permitted to unpermitted, because it was unclear in the bylaw. So this kind of opens that back up a little bit. Doesn't fix everything, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of them, but I think it does give an opportunity for a couple of folks out there that are interested.
Do we want to vote on this tonight, or do you want to hold off until the town meeting floor so you can get more information on it?
Yeah, I'd like to get a little more information, because I'd like to be open to the new businesses and encouraging of them. I just want to make sure that what we're doing makes sense. The units that are already there would not be affected by this.
No, they wouldn't be, it wouldn't change their status at all, because most likely they don't conform even with the new bylaw. So they're just gonna be pre-existing non-conforming units,
Okay.
whether we adopt it or not.
Sam, would the members of the
They happen
planning
to
board be
conform.
available at the town meeting to answer questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good, okay.
Bill, what's your feelings?
I'm comfortable voting on it one way or the other tonight.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to move favorable on Article 14 and 15.
Okay, motion for Article 14 and 15, is there a second?
Second that.
And a second. All in favor? Opposed? 2 in favor, 2 opposed.
Just the way it should be. Perfect.
It'll go to the town meeting floor.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll get more
You
information.
guys done with me, or I just don't wanna shut up before I?
Well, not sure yet. We're going to 6, yeah, I think we're all set with you.
All right, Rebecca's got my number if you need me back on.
Thank you, Sam.
We don't want to
Thank
wake you
you.
up, though. You going to bed?
No, well, I might be more effective while I'm sleeping.
Oh, okay.
you,
Article
guys.
16. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of $88,000 from the Community Preservation General Reserve fiscal year 2022 to be made available for establishing a walking trail entrance at the Pines Recreation Area or take any other action thereto. This project is to be managed by the town planner and town administrator under the CPA category of recreation. And we have Mike Dempsey here that has all the information on it. Do you have any questions?
I recommend we recommend favorable action.
The project will provide funds to establish a new entrance to the Pines Recreation Area that would connect the Main Street sidewalk and the Pines for pedestrians. The trail would encourage more recreational use and safe entry to the property for all residents entering the Pines on foot, by bicycle, or baby carriage. The concrete trail will extend approximately 500 feet into the Pines.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Bill, go ahead.
How's that been integrated with the arrival of the new dog park in its location?
Yeah.
Yes. So does it go right through the dog park, like the old expressway went through the neighborhoods in Boston?
It's gonna go on the edge of the dog park. It'll go on where we are.
Mike, can you go to the podium and so everybody can hear you?
Yep. So it's gonna be on the far end, so the drive-in roadway is there, the dog park is next, and then this path will be after the dog park.
Okay, so logistically, you've already worked it all out, so there's no conflict anywhere
Right.
with, okay, I'm good, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? None? All in favor? 3 in favor. I'm abstaining. That was Article 16. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $214,000 from the Community Preservation, Historic Preservation Reserve fiscal year 2022 to be made available for completion of an accessible lift in the main building at Beasley Memorial Park, connecting the 3 levels and making the building completely accessible, or taking any other action thereto. Project would provide funds for the completion of an accessible lift, that's the elevator, in the main building. The lift would enable all visitors of any ability to access the 3 levels in the building. This third phase project will aim to complete the process to make the park accessible. ADA compliant improvements provide safer access to the facility for the public and all people with disabilities.
I recommend a motion for favorable.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any questions? None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $17,500 from the Community Preservation, Historic Preservation Reserve fiscal year 2022 to make available for a feasibility study to develop, design, and usage plans for the historic Lucille's Cottage at VZ Park, or take any other action thereto. The project is to be managed by the Groveland Conservation Commission, the director of VZ Park, and the town administrator under the CPA category of historic preservation.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Go ahead, Bill.
Mike, isn't this the place that, isn't,
60,000.
Didn't we see this before?
Lisa,
Yes.
yeah, this
So
is the
notice-
Titanic hitting the
No, but however,
proverbial
notice,
iceberg again.
notice that we're only asking for $17,000. That is because we took all of your input from 2 years ago and went and found an architect who knew what the heck he's doing and is willing to donate some of his time. In addition to that, came up with a use for the building. So the reason why we want to restore it is we have a plan to make it into an artist facility. So we have the backing of a lot of art groups in the region who are behind this thing. So between them and the architect, they think that they can come up with a plan for $17,000 that, using the plan, they're going to have to raise the money to do the building, because the building, may cost $250,000 or something to actually fix it and do it all up. But it's a far better plan than it was
Yeah.
last time.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Bill?
So the artists are working on a plan?
Yeah, they're gonna be part of it. This money pays for part of the architect costs and part of the artist consultant that's helping to develop the plan.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Any other questions for Mike?
No?
None. There was a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor? 3 in favor. I'm going to abstain. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or reserve from community preservation fiscal year 2023 estimated annual revenues, the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, debt service, community preservation project, and other expenses, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. And looking at committee administrative expenses, 30,000. Reserves, open space, 71,000. Historic resources, 71,000. Community housing, 71,000. Or take any other action relative thereto, submitted by Community Preservation Committee.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
I'll second that.
Motion, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Article 20. See if the town will vote to transfer $75,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash to make capital upgrades at the Bagnell School, including all costs incidental and relative thereto, or take any other action relative thereto, submitted by the town administrator. Each year, the Pentucket Regional School District provides a list of requested capital upgrades at the Bagnell School. The town plans to begin a multi-year program to address these requests.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable
A
action.
motion is a second. And a second. Any further discussion or any discussion? None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. 21, see if the town will vote to transfer $50,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash to make municipal building improvements, including all costs incidental and relative thereto, or take any other action relative thereto, submitted by the town administrator to make necessary upgrades to the town facilities.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Bill?
Is there a way we can be more specific than general repairs and maintenance? I mean, is this for the HVAC unit or the generator or
No,
the roof?
hopefully the carpet.
To cover any of those that, like, so originally the $50,000 allocation came before the board for the carpet installation.
Yep.
You remember, and it didn't go through because there was a bunch of different things going on. So the plan is to use it for the carpet installation this coming year, but if things happen with the generator, with the roof, which the HVAC or anything of that nature, we'll have additional monies that we can use to help supplement those projects to make sure they come to fruition before investing in something that we can push off until the next fiscal year. So that's why it's a little bit more general yet again.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to accept the sum of $40,000 from the Groveland Municipal Electric Department Operation Account to town estimated receipts to reduce the tax rate for the 12 months ending June 30th, 2023, or take any other action relative thereto. There shouldn't be any question on that one.
A motion that we recommend favorable action.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? None. All in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $21,420 from the Conservation Commission fees account, I'm not going to read the account numbers, to the Conservation Commission salary account for fiscal year 2023 for the purpose of funding for the conservation agent or to take any other action relative to thereto. This article transfers funds from fees collected by the commission to the commission salary account.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
Second.
And motion and a second, discussion, none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $1,000 from the Conservation Commission fees account to the Conservation Commission expense account for fiscal year 2023 for the Conservation Commission's operating costs or to take other action relative thereto, submitted by the Conservation Commission. This article transfers funds from fees collected by the commission to the commission services account.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? No? You had something, Jason?
Just, he's ready to vote.
You're not sure?
No, I had nothing.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
It's a voting.
See if the town will, Article 25. See if the town will vote persistent to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to set the annual spending limits for the following three revolving accounts established by the general bylaws for fiscal year 2023, or take any action relative thereto. Revolving account, Bagnell Summer School Program, a spending limit for fiscal year 2023, $250,000. Council on Aging, $15,000. Fire Department CPR Class, $6,000. And reports on the revolving funds may be found in Appendix B.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
And a
Second.
Any further discussion? None. All in favor? Unanimous. To see if the town will vote to, Article 26, see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $15,000 from the overlay surplus account for the purpose of funding the town's operating budget for fiscal year 2023, or take any action relative thereto. Article submitted by the Board of Selectmen.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
Second.
And a second. For discussion? You had something, Jason?
Nope. I was ready to vote.
He's ready
Oh,
to
you're ready to
vote.
vote? All in favor?
He's just
Aye.
getting that
Unanimous.
arm
Thank you.
flex.
Article 27, to see if the town will vote to transfer $85,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash for the purpose of funding the town's operating budget for fiscal year 2023, or take any other action relative thereto. This would cover the cost of the other post-employment benefits fiscal year 2023 trust fund appropriation.
I make a
Motion.
motion for recommended favorable action.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion? None. All in favor? Unanimous. Article 28, see if the town will vote to transfer $100,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash to the stabilization fund account, or to take any other action relative thereto. This article would add to our rainy day fund and place a portion of the funds that were used at the 2021 special town meeting, $208,167.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? None. All in favor? Unanimous. To see if the fund, see if the town will vote to transfer $20,758.62 from the fiscal year 2022 town free cash to the FEMA fiscal year 2021 assistance to firefighters grant account, or take any other action relative thereto. This article would appropriate funds toward a regional grant for portable radios. If the grant is not awarded to Groveland by June 2022, the funds would revert back to free cash.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 30, we're almost done. To see if the town will vote to transfer $2,400.39 from the fiscal year 2022 town free cash to fund the flight to
The oblique angle.
aerial photography from the, I can get it, Kathy,
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Through the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, or take any other action relative thereto.
Really?
That was a tongue twister.
Is that really what we want to do?
It's a tongue twister.
To oblique angle.
Wait for moderator dark. Motion.
This article would appropriate funds toward the 2023 flight to obtain the latest aerial imagery. Motion.
Motion to recommend favorable action.
Motion, second,
Second.
second. Further discussion? Bill?
Can't we use Google Maps?
Well, it's a little different than Google Maps. It's a little, like, it's actually out in the Merrimack Valley, specific to the Merrimack Valley, and then we have the certain years. So you could, technically, if somebody reports that somebody had installed a pool without pulling permits, the building commissioner can look at the aerial imagery and go from 2020 to 2022 and see specifically that that person had installed a pool.
Ah, Big Brother in the sky.
with the oblique angle.
Uh-huh.
But it helps with all other land development issues. It shows where subdivisions are built. It shows like different types of like imagery to what we're doing with our trail and stuff like that. So it's very helpful.
Okay.
It's not just to spy on people.
Well, that's what you say.
That's what Google's for.
Okay.
We
We have a
may-
motion and a
we-
second.
yeah.
Any further discussion? None. All in favor? Unanimous.
No,
No, opposed?
thank you.
All right. 3 in favor, 1 opposed. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $35,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash to the MS4 stormwater permit account for the purpose of funding, engineering, and consulting services for the development of an application for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, MS4 stormwater permit, and for implementing MS4 permit requirements, including all costs incidental and relative thereto, or take any other action relative thereto. This is a year 4 of a 5-year program.
I'll make a motion that we recommend favorable action.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
I'm not happy that we have these unfunded mandates, right? They should be giving us this money. It's ridiculous.
Anybody else? All in favor? Unanimous. See if the town will vote to transfer $25,000 from fiscal year 2022 town free cash to the personnel buyback account, or take any other action relative thereto. This article would appropriate funds into the accrued time personal buyback account. Existing collective bargaining agreements and personal policy provide a percentage of sick time as a cash buyback upon retirement.
Make a
Am I too
motion
fast,
for,
Mike?
What?
Motion
motion
Second.
for favorable action.
and a second. Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 33, see if the town will
I'll
vote,
motion to dispense with the reading of Article 33 and 34, because they're kind of the same thing, and I'll make a motion that we recommend favorable.
I'll second.
motion and a second on Article 33 and 34. Discussion? None, in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Article 35, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $40,000 from the Water Enterprise Department retained earnings for the purchase and installation of water mains, including all costs incidental and relative thereto, or take any other action relative thereto, submitted by the Water and Sewer Commission.
I make a motion, we recommend favorable action.
And a second.
Second.
Second discussion.
If it please the board, 36 is a related article. Can we also
Include
move
it.
to? Yeah, include that.
Okay, see if the, Article 36, see if town vote to transfer $30,000 from the sewer enterprise retained earnings for the continuation of sewer inflow and infiltration reduction program, or take any other action relative thereto. Want to add that in the motion?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
so
I just
moved.
have a question, whereabouts are these going to take place?
I'm sorry.
Where are they going to take place, or is this just,
Well,
they're-
I don't know specific projects that
they don't have any specific projects, they just,
not that was brought to our attention. I don't know if they said anything during the meeting, but I don't believe they mentioned specific areas.
okay. Any other discussion? None, all in favor?
Right.
Unanimous.
I move to dispense with the reading of Articles 37 and 38, as they both are the water and sewer itemized line item budgets, and we can review those.
I'll second
And-
that.
Okay. Do we have to vote on that? We just go? I'll make a motion that we recommend favorable action for Articles 37 and 38, water and sewer budgets.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? None, all in favor? Unanimous. That brings us to, let's see, that was
39.
39. See if the town will vote to assess an additional $427,838 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of paying the Pawtucket Regional School District annual assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, or take any other action relative thereto.
this is the way we have to do this? Yeah, we do that and the,
I'd like to make a motion that we table it so as not to influence the vote at the ballot that's about to take place in a couple of days.
okay.
The finance board tabled this for the same reason.
I think we should put the 2 zeros, though, for the
Finance board
sense.
wants to do the same?
We already
They
did.
already
We
did it.
already
Anything?
voted, but that was our take
dot
to
zeros.
table this and allow,
So as not to influence
So
people
let's-
out there to make their own decisions
And
based on
to-
their personal, yeah.
Okay, so Article 40?
to allow the
Oh,
ballot
do we need to vote?
to have the
We
opportunity
need to
to.
vote to table it.
Okay, I'll make a motion table.
I did.
Oh, second, sorry.
Motion is and Kathy, you're going to second.
I seconded that, yeah.
Motion to table, all in favor of tabling? Unanimous. Article 40.
We already did
Keep
that.
it,
Yeah.
Article 40.
No.
Well, we went through the omnibus.
39.
Omnibus goes in, I just didn't put it in there so I could put the recommendations as part of the column like you typically do or have historically done.
Oh, okay.
See if the town will vote to raise the following sums to defray the town charges for the ensuing year ending June 30th, 2023, and make appropriations therefore, or take any other action relative thereto. And I think we've already covered all of that.
And
Motion,
Article 41, recommend a favorable action to fix the salaries and all that.
and we can take them both 40 and 40, 41 and 40, 40
Okay.
and 41 together.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for 40 and 41 favorable action.
Okay, any other discussion?
No?
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Unanimous. That should finish everything.
Let's just say, Mr. Chairman, that I think that our town administrator did an outstanding job assembling this document, organizing it. The presentation is impeccable. Everything we need is here. Thank you. You did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Could
And
I
thank
ha-
you to the finance board.
Well, I was sitting here also to say the same about Rebecca. Really, her first year going through the budget and the warrant, it was smooth. It was an iterative process, but, I mean, she put in a ton of work. I feel so confident with the accuracy.
Better than last year?
Yes, better than last year, but really, great job, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, so thank you so much. I'm so congratulatory toward you in this role, so on behalf of the Finance Board, thank you.
I feel like we should clap, but, no.
Okay, we need, we're all set on that. We need to vote to close the annual town meeting warrant.
Oh,
We need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to close the annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
That just allows for nobody to put anything, no citizens petitions or anything can go on the warrant. We can still alter and amend as we need to.
Okay. All
Okay,
set?
motion and a second.
Yeah.
And any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Town administrator time. We're almost done.
So I only had one thing, and I guess I don't know if it comes up other than other items not reasonably anticipated, so you tell me, Mr. Chair, is that, I had a walkthrough at the Bagnell School with both, Selectman O'Neill, one day to explore some issues with some storage, and then also to explore some, classroom issues that came about with Selectwoman Castronellis, and one of the things that was brought to our attention in both of those walkthroughs separately was that there is some significant termite damage over at the school that has closed not one classroom, but 2 classrooms. We have a classroom that's now situated in the library, and there's just seems to be a significant issue with space over at the Bagnell School. And they can't go through the process of getting rid of the termites by just getting rid of the nest, because the issue is, if you know, there's the 2 courtyards with the big trees and like the green space that's in the middle of the building. And so if you were to get rid of the nest, they're still gonna come back because the environment is just prone to attract that type of species. So essentially what the solution is to get rid of the courtyards and also get rid of the nest at the same time. So in a brief conversation with the facilities coordinator and the principal, Mr. Day, we were talking about potentially getting rid of the trees, getting rid of the brush, getting rid of everything in the courtyard, and then putting some crushed stone on the side of it for drainage, and then maybe putting some patio stones or something so that there still could be use of the outdoor space, but there would be nothing to grow. And essentially that project would probably take about $50,000 or so to accomplish all of those for 2 of the courtyards, as well as making sure that the termites were eradicated. And so the request was to potentially use American Rescue funds for the school to take care of that particular issue. And it was not something that we honestly just found out about the issue, and timing is of the essence, especially where, again, we have 2 classrooms that can't be utilized. There's no desks in there, they're eating away at the windowsills, and I can share with the board pictures of such too. So it was a request that the board consider potentially using the American Rescue Funds to help address that problem.
Can I make a motion for discussion purposes?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to use $50,000 of the American ARPA, what's the initials mean anymore? Funds to, under the guidance of the town administrator, to eradicate the termite infestation at the Bagnell School before it becomes any worse.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second.
So
Further
during,
discussion?
yeah, so during the tour, one of the classrooms, he told me that the complete windowsill was covered with these termites. This is not just a case of a couple of bugs coming in a classroom. This seriously cannot put students in that room. And I was shocked by how crowded the building is with the, now they have the whole IT department there, and that is part of the problem with packages. Everything's arriving for the IT department. The IT, head of IT has an office in the main office. Curriculum coaches have another room. They have 2 or 3 district programs for students with special requirements that require space and allocation of classrooms. And now they have a whole classroom in the library, and they're still using part of the library for something else. I mean, it's
For
gotten to the
library.
point of insanity there. And it really looks serious. It's-
Time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Move.
Could we, I'm not sure that under town administrator's time, we could take a motion. I think we should do that under other items
Oh,
not
okay.
reasonably anticipated.
I'll wait.
So why don't we take up other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting, and we'll go with Kathy's motion.
Okay, thank you.
Second, any other discussion?
And my sincerest apologies about bringing it up, but like I said, it was a very serious situation that I at least felt I needed to bring to the board full attention, not just one member, to the whole board, because I feel as though it really is not just there's a couple of bugs in a classroom. And that, I do apologize for bringing that in to
Yeah,
the board last
we should
week.
do that under
Unanticipated.
items not anticipated. Any further discussion? None, all in favor? Unanimous. Rebecca, do you have anything else?
How about the front grounds? Is it?
Selectmen's time and reports. Jason, do you have anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Kathy?
Well, just during the tour, what was noted was that the back fields of the Bagnell School, this is a future thing, they're being well-maintained by the town, so they're lush and they're green, but the front of the school is evidently maintained by the Pentucket, and it looks like terrible. There's a dust bowl. Nothing's being done there. So I don't understand, like, the school lease, if we could see it somehow. I don't know if, Bill, if you have access to, are we supposed to be taking care of the front of the school?
Much like any lease, the owner of the property is typically responsible for its maintenance, the lawn mowing, the snow plowing, things like that, where the leasee is typically responsible for things that go on inside the building. Now, I'm sure a simple discussion with the school district will solve all these problems. I mean, I've had great success with getting them to understand, things that need to be done, urgency in them, and I think they would be amenable to talking about that and helping us out so that it looks as good in the front as it does in the back. And that was one of the things that was brought up during my walkthrough with Rebecca and Mr. Danforth and Mr. Day. So, seeing as they brought up the looks and the condition of the front, I think they would be receptive to discussions on what's the best course of action and how do we go about resolving that to the satisfaction of all concerned.
Well, I was kind of shocked by my walkthrough from what I saw just barely 3 years ago about the uses of space, the number of district programs that have been moved into the elementary school with the largest student population, the fact that the IT office is locked, even the principal can't open the door. I mean, it's a pretty big space that's being utilized at a time when it looks like our students, our Bagnell students, are being serviced in what amounts to essentially a closet for some of the special services. And I don't know how it got to this point, because this is one of the lowest populations Bagnell has had, and we have an addition on the building, and
This was brought
they
up.
talk all good talk, and they talk about wanting to raise test scores and all that, and I'm looking at an elementary school, and I'm wondering, how do the other town elementary schools look? Are they as crowded and in as poor shape as ours right now, with a brand-new addition on it?
Do we want an agenda item to talk about the front of the school?
I would like to start somewhere.
We can, perhaps, we got a meeting before town meeting, don't we? We're in 2 weeks.
May 4th.
Yeah, we're going after that though, don't we? Before town meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we bring it up, put it on the agenda then? Bill, you have anything else?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. First of all, from somebody who sat on the Finance Committee for 4 years, I just want to thank Ms. Ravad and her team for the work they put in. It's all volunteer work. It's so vitally important to the town. I can't even stress how important and how valuable that work is. And it should be acknowledged that the fantastic work they do, as well as Miss Oldham being a big part of that process this year, and being new, this is it really went off smooth. Unfortunate we were in this situation, but it's as smooth as we could. Second thing I'd like to talk about is crosswalks. It came really apparent to me Saturday. Took my grandson down to Jerry's and crossing the street there, the crosswalks. They're almost, you can't see them anymore. And I came across Mr. Dempsey and his lovely bride on Sunday, was it? They were walking the new rail trail, and there's a spot there where you really have to, once you come off the rail trail, you have to go down the street about 100 yards or so before you come to a crosswalk. So some of them need to be repainted, for sure. I don't know how we can do about that. And then others, it seems like there aren't somewhere they're needed. So maybe that could be looked into so nobody gets squashed like Dwayne Haskins crossing the street, by a big dump truck.
Very much so. I don't know which areas on the rail trail. I know we're gonna go back and we're gonna try and make the connections for the crosswalks that are in relation to the rail trail. But if there's any others, please let me know, and I'll work with the highway superintendent. We can make sure to get those done, because I know he does towards the school season. He does them around the school area.
Yeah.
And I know he recently, before the winter season, did some on School Street. But if there's any others, just send me the street name and we can get them on the list.
Yeah, start with the ones downtown, and then I'll get you the rest of the street names. Those are you can
Perfect.
start there. That'd be great.
Of course.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Mike, thought the rail trail was closed.
Oh, he's in trouble.
Why don't you turn yourself in?
He was looking at the turtles. He was
Wait a
watching
minute,
the
there's a sign
turtles.
out here at the town hall that the rail trail is closed.
That's what he told me. He was just making sure that nobody else was on it when he was down there. He was.
I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
Saw several other people walking on it, and I told them that it was closed and they shouldn't be.
He had a cap on it, said Rail Trail Police when I saw him, so
Mike, your nose is getting bigger. I don't buy that, I'm sorry. Good try, though. Did you have your bicycle out there or did you walk?
No, I walked. It was great.
All right, well,
You're not supposed to admit to it. I mean, I'm trying to help you out here.
I'm just trying to get him in hot water. All right, and I don't have anything other than that. Old or unfinished business, none.
Well, the library's still doing that cleanup. I challenge you guys. I already put my picture in. Come on.
I do have one more thing,
You gonna clean up?
Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
No. This Saturday, opening day for Groveland Baseball League.
Oh,
If you haven't been there to experience the parade and the excitement of these young girls and boys, you're really missing out on something. It's an extraordinary event. I encourage you to go down to Washington Park, cheer these young kids on. It's an experience you'll never forget, and once you go down there, you'll come back every week.
Maybe in addition, you could ask Jason if they could maybe get that on the TV?
If they have no other pressing meetings, that would be great if you could do it.
it's a baseball parade.
You know what? I meant to ask that before I came down here. I believe the parade starts around 9 or 10 o'clock.
10, I thought usually.
But I can get you that
Fire department will know.
before we leave. I'll get you that.
Okay, no correspondence. Adjournment, we need a motion to adjourn. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on Wednesday, May 4th at 6:30.
Make a motion to adjourn at 9:45 PM.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Are we off the air, Jason?